Chapter 801. I absorbed your mana, so this bit of energy is my compensation for you, Ding Ming said calmly. Guanlin was a little shy. She knew that her current position would create an indescribable temptation for any man, but she still insisted on sitting up. Ding Ming said again, "You need to spend some time digesting this source energy." Guanlin sighed. "You're not lying. You're really helping me." Ding Ming said, "Now, try to recall again. Is the Songqing spaceship that you're on not allowed to enter the Empire's airspace?" Guanlin nodded. "Yes." Ding Ming said, "I've always thought that the Hidden Front was circling around in space to avoid detection. In fact, that's not the case. The leader of the Hidden Front forbade you from entering the Empire's airspace because you might be able to contact your mother once you enter the Empire's airspace. Once you meet her, the truth will be revealed. That's why you're still helping her count the money even after you've been sold." Guanlin stared at the ground silently, her expression melancholy. "Thank you." Guanlin looked up at Ding Ming again. "You don't have to thank me." Ding Ming waved his hand decisively. "I'm also using you." Guanlin immediately raised her guard. Ding Ming said meaningfully, "But I'm different from the leader of the Hidden Front. He's using you, but he's hiding a lot of things from you. If I want to use you, I'll definitely tell you the truth." Guanlin stared at him and nodded seriously. "I believe you. I can see that too." Ding Ming also looked at her and sighed. "If I have to find a reason to help you, it might be that I'm a little envious of you." "Envious of me?" Guanlin was stunned again. Even someone as powerful as Ding Ming would be envious of her. What was Ding Ming envious of? Ding Ming said expressionlessly, "Because you have relatives." Guanlin was speechless. Her ultimate goal had always been to become strong. As a citizen of the Norse Empire, almost everyone had this idea. Suddenly, she realized that she was wrong, because even the truly strong would not agree with this idea. Now, Ding Ming had proven her wrong. Guanlin looked up and said seriously, "I don't know much, but I can tell you everything I know." Ding Ming nodded. That was his goal. He wanted to understand the structure and secrets of the Hidden Front from the inside of the Hidden Front. "But I have a condition," Guanlin said straightforwardly. This was also within Ding Ming's expectations. Guanlin had been kidnapped many years ago, and it was impossible for her to not have some sense of crisis and intelligence to survive in an organization like the Hidden Front until now. Guanlin continued, "I want you to take me right now." Ding Ming looked at her meaningfully. "You hated me so much before, and now you're making such a request?" Guanlin was very similar to Junling. She seemed to be very flirtatious, but she was actually very straightforward. The past is the past, and the present is the present. The situation is completely different now, and you won't lose out in this matter. You also have your own goals. I can see that you are the kind of person with perseverance. This time, I am willing to bet everything on you." Ding Ming fell silent. He suddenly realized that he had still underestimated Guanlin. However, Guanlin stood up with difficulty. She took the initiative to take off her white shirt and walked in front of Ding Ming. The passion came and went quickly. At least, the people involved felt that it was very fast. However, when the passion receded, the night sky outside was already faintly glowing. It seemed that the sky was about to brighten and the night was about to pass. Guanlin put on her coat again and sat at the head of the bed with a strange expression. When I first arrived here, the instructor, the station commander, and the butler were already here. You guessed right. When the boss isn't around, the three of them have absolute authority over the big and small matters that happen in the space station. They have a lot of authority. Ding Ming listened quietly at the side. Guanlin said, "The station commander and the butler's identities are very mysterious. Although they also show their true faces, no one knows where they come from. Moreover, they are very strong. I feel that they should be experts on the same level as you." Ding Ming said, "Number 2 to 10 show their true faces?" Guanlin shook her head and said, "No, number 2 and the boss are the same. They never show their true faces. No one knows who they are." Ding Ming said, "That is to say, you have seen number 3 to 10 before?" Guanlin did not directly answer this question. "I used to study at the capital's Empire Star University." You should know the reputation of the Empire Star University. Ding Meng nodded. It's the best university that sends high-level talents to the entire empire. Guanlin said, the history of the Empire Star is even older than that of the Federation's St. Brilliant University. Even when the human world's technology was still underdeveloped, the Empire Star gave birth to many legends. I once visited the Hall of Fame in the Empire Star University and saw the glorious history of many seniors. One of them was a legendary figure in the military. He was a general, and his name was Gong Ping. Due to his age, the Hall of Fame did not preserve any information about him, only some blurry pictures. Ding Meng said in a low voice, could it be that he is related to the Hidden Front? Guanlin said, this General Gong had a glorious battle record and was famous. He was one of the most dazzling figures in the empire. However, there was a scandal about him 200 years ago. He had an affair with his brother and sister-in-law and was caught on the spot by his elder brother. In order to prevent the matter from being exposed, he actually killed his elder brother's entire family. However, the matter was exposed later, and he was found guilty of raping and murdering young children. In the end, he was arrested by General Ross of the Special Operations Department. The Empire's court took into account his outstanding achievements in the past and did not sentence him to death. Instead, he was sent into a space-time crack and drifted in the depths of the universe, leaving him to fend for himself. The outside world judged that he would not be able to survive, so he should have died many years ago. Ding Meng sneered. I'm afraid he's not really dead. Guanlin nodded and said, I'm one of the few people who have seen the blurry image of General Gong. I always feel that his face is very similar to someone else's, at least 60% similar. However, I'm still not sure. Ding Meng asked in a low voice, who is this person? Guanlin turned to look at him and said word by word, Instructor. Ding Meng pondered and said, he was supposed to be dead, but he's still alive. Is a situation like this from number 2 to number 10? Guanlin said most likely. They were supposed to be dead, but they're still alive. There must be a very complicated reason for this. Ding Meng sighed. Such a powerful person is only ranked number 8. Aren't the people before him even more powerful? A hint of fear appeared in Guanlin's eyes. The officers before him, I've never seen them in action. This was the reason why she feared the boss of the Hidden Front. This organization was too complicated and terrifying. To be able to command so many powerful people to work for him, he must have some extraordinary means, not just strength. Ding Meng also felt an invisible pressure. This was because he and Little Rascal would never allow the key to open the land of entropy to fall into the hands of others. This mission was far more difficult than any of their previous missions. Guanlin continued. Officer number 5 is called the Butcher. He rarely comes to the space station, but when he does, he's there to kill. During the day, the station commander said that he would be coming here today. I'm guessing that he's here to deal with you. Ding Meng couldn't agree more. Although the instructor and the others were polite to him, it was definitely just on the surface. There had to be a deeper reason. The boss of the Hidden Front wanted to meet him, but he had to be qualified to meet him. This Butcher was very likely the obstacle he had to overcome. If he couldn't pass this obstacle, then he was actually useless to the boss of the Hidden Front. Trash was worthless, so there was no need for this meeting. Guanlin's mind was connected with his at this moment. You really have to be careful of this Butcher. He's very strong, very strong. Ding Meng nodded. I understand. Guanlin said, that's all I know. Ding Meng said, thank you. You're welcome. Guanlin turned her head to look at him again. I want you to understand 2 things. First, I'm not the kind of woman who would casually sell her body. Although my first time was taken away by someone else, I gave myself to you because your arrival broke the balance of this place. Since I've been abandoned by them, I'm very likely to die an unnatural death. Although I'm not your real woman in name, with this night's due, I hope that it can increase my chances of survival. Ding Meng sighed. I completely understand. Otherwise, I wouldn't have agreed to your request just now. Guanlin continued. Second, if I have to find a reason to give myself to you, it would be that I sympathize with you. Ding Meng listened quietly. Guanlin said, I didn't expect that someone as strong as you wouldn't even have a family. I heard the instructor talk about your background during the day. I think that you've not only paid a high price to survive from your exile to this day, but you've also been struggling to survive. From this point of view, I'm just like you, trying to find a way to survive. Besides, you're very strong, and I'm also willing to follow the strong. Of course, you can also understand that I'm flattering myself. You can kick me away at any time after you've used me. I won't blame you. Ding Meng looked at her quietly and said seriously, "Thank you for thinking so highly of me." "Thank you," Guan Lin said sincerely. This sentence of thanks between them already contained too many things. "I'll slowly digest the source energy you've injected into me. I won't be able to accompany you for a long time, so I can only stay in this room and cultivate. If you can come back and are willing to, I only have one last request. I hope to see my mother. If you don't come back and are unwilling to, I'll still say the same thing. I won't blame you." This request was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. At least for her, it was almost impossible. However, for Ding Meng, the chances of seeing his family were much higher. Ding Meng said in a deep voice, "If I come back alive, I'll definitely take you away from here and take you to the Empire to see your mother." Guan Lin's shoulders trembled slightly. "I absolutely believe that a big shot like you is worth 1,000 gold. I'll wait for you." Ding Meng slowly got out of bed. He had already sensed that the housekeeper had already arrived at the lobby on the first floor of the hotel and was sitting on the sofa with her eyes closed. Judging from the situation, she must have come to pick him up. Ding Meng was about to turn and leave when Guan Lin called out to him, "Wait." Guan Lin got up with difficulty, stretched out a pair of jade-like arms, and hooked Ding Meng's neck. She gently kissed his face. "I don't have anything to help you with. I can only do this to deepen your impression of me. I'll wait for you. I hope I can wait until the day I go back." Chapter 802. The sky was already completely bright, but it was still overcast. The weather on the space station was simulated, and it was usually sunny or rainy. However, the management system had created a cloudy day, which made people feel uncomfortable because of the low visibility around them. The housekeeper's smile was still warm and generous. When she saw Ding Meng walk out of the elevator, she quickly walked up to him. "Mr. Ting, did you rest well last night?" Ding Meng nodded and said, "Thank you for your hospitality, boss of the Hidden Front." There was something wrong with his words. Instead of thanking the housekeeper, he thanked the boss. Was he implying that the boss had been cuckolded? When the housekeeper saw his radiant expression, she smiled even more happily. "It's good that Mr. Ting is satisfied. Miss Guan is actually a lady from a respectable family. She's quite a good match for Mr. Ting." This proved that she knew about it, and it also confirmed that Ding Meng had really slept with Guan Lin. This Ding Meng was really daring. Of course, Ding Meng would never be able to tell what she was thinking from her expression. "Mr. Ting, Officer number 5 has arrived at this station. He heard that you were coming and that you're very fond of good food, so he invited you to try it out," the housekeeper explained enthusiastically. "Then where is he now?" Ding Meng asked. The housekeeper said, "Follow the street on the left and you'll see him. He's been waiting for a long time." After walking about 15 kilometers from the intersection, they arrived at a place that looked like a plaza. In fact, this was not a real plaza, but a training ground. It was the kind of training ground that could be seen everywhere in the Norse Empire. The Empire encouraged its citizens to practice martial arts, so there were such arenas everywhere in the cities. They were similar to the training halls of dojos, except that they had been moved from indoors to outdoors. There were 70 to 80 soldiers gathered around the plaza. They were all wearing the Hidden Front's black clothes, black pants, and black masks. Ding Meng swept his gaze over them. Surprisingly, none of these soldiers were below the combat master level. Furthermore, they were all normal origin ability users and not regenerated warriors. All the soldiers gathered around the huge arena. In the center of the arena, which was made of steel plates, stood a majestic man. This man was at least 2 meters tall, and his body was extremely burly. His upper body was bare, and his body was full of fat. He wore a pair of alloy combat pants and a pair of combat boots, and there was a thick iron chain tied around his waist. His entire person was majestic and full of momentum. He was simply not a person, but a mountain pressing down on the arena. As soon as he saw Ding Ming, the big man opened his mouth and said in a voice as loud as a bell, "Ding Ming, butcher?" Ding Ming asked. The butcher's eyes narrowed into slits. He sized up Ding Ming and nodded slightly. "You're early," Ding Ming said. "Oh," the butcher said, "the dishes aren't ready yet." Ding Ming said, "I think I'm a little early." The butcher turned his head and roared, "Serve the dishes." With this roar, the 70 to 80 soldiers immediately began to move quickly. In just a short moment, an astral beast was lifted onto the arena. Upon closer inspection, it was a camphor goat. This astral beast, which was about the size of a tank, lived on planet Poison Hazard. It liked to feed on herbs that were filled with strong toxins. Strangely enough, the camphor goat ate poisonous plants and flowers, but it was not poisonous. Its meat was fresh and delicious. Whether it was in the Federation or the Empire, this kind of mutton was an extremely rare luxury because it was not easy to catch them. Even in the devouring world, the camphor goat was still a rare treasure. Its horns were used to concoct toxins and had miraculous effects. Ding Ming looked at this group of soldiers. The butcher's subordinates were indeed quite capable. In just 10 minutes, the camphor goat was dismembered and roasted over a large fire. They even used origin flames. Following that, a large round alloy table was assembled. Tons of roasted meat were piled on top of it. The golden color and rich aroma made one want to pounce on it. Ding Ming did not move because he noticed 6 thin men wearing energy chains being pushed onto the arena by the soldiers. Looking at their ragged clothes and disheveled appearance, Ding Ming wondered if they were the butcher's captives. As expected, the butcher was already shouting at the 6 of them, "This meal is prepared for you." The 6 captives raised their heads slightly. Their eyes were filled with shock. It was obvious that they did not believe him. The butcher's tone was much calmer. "Eat to your heart's content. Eat to your heart's content, because this is your last meal." This reminded one of a prison. Before a prisoner was executed, there would usually be a last dinner. This dinner was usually very sumptuous. Plop! Some of the captives were so scared that they fell to the ground. They must have realized that their time was up and that they would still die in the end. The butcher looked at them coldly. Being able to enjoy a meal before death is better than being scared to death. If it were me, I would eat my fill first. The 6 captives seemed to have woken up from a dream. They scrambled to the table and pounced on the mountain of meat. They reached out to grab the roasted meat and stuffed it into their mouths. The table was at least 100 square meters. The meat piled on top of it probably weighed dozens of tons. Moreover, the 6 captives were ordinary people. How could they possibly finish it? In less than 5 minutes, they were so full that they fell to the ground. The butcher said coldly, "If you're done eating, it's time to go." After saying that, he waved his hand and reached out to grab a skinny man. It felt like he was holding half of the man's body. Then he exerted force in his palm. Not only was the man squeezed until he bled from all 7 orifices and lost control of his bowels and bowels, even his eyeballs were squeezed out. This scene alone was enough to make one tremble in fear. And those who were not mentally strong would not even dare to watch what happened next. It was as if the butcher was holding a chicken roll. He opened his mouth wide and gobbled up the person in a few bites. The sound of bones and flesh being chewed in his mouth was absolutely horrifying. The most important thing was that the butcher even swallowed the person's body. Looking at his expression, not only did he not care, he even seemed to be enjoying it. He even licked the person's eyeballs that were stuck on his fingers. Back in the days, the pirate leaders of the extreme pirate troop were also cannibals. However, they only ate the brain and placenta that had been cooked. The butcher, on the other hand, ate the man alive, including the skin. He did not even spit out the bones. Ding Ming was well informed, but this was the first time he had seen such a fierce person. It should be said that the butcher was not a human at all. He was simply a beast from the ancient times. The butcher turned to Ding Ming and said, "When a human body absorbs nutrients, the muscles are nourished. The meat is the most delicious. This is the dish I'm treating you today. Are you interested in tasting it?" Ding Ming seemed to be shocked. He did not answer at first. Butcher revealed a proud smile. He had come here today specifically to intimidate Ding Meng. Of course, he had already intimidated many experts like Ding Meng with this move. Actually, you're not bad. The butcher smiled cruelly. At least you haven't vomited yet. Many people can't stand watching me eat for as long as you. Ding Meng slowly walked into the arena and said calmly, "You're not human." The butcher narrowed his eyes again. Ding Meng looked at the remaining 5 trembling captives and said, "These people are not vegetables either." The butcher smiled and said, "It doesn't matter if they're human or vegetables. It's a pity that you don't have the guts to eat them." "You're wrong." Ding Meng was expressionless. "Do you know why I said you're not human?" "Why?" The butcher stared at him fiercely. Ding Meng said word by word, "Because you're a dog. Only dogs like to eat shit. A real human would not eat shit." As soon as he said this, everyone's expression changed. Even if the boss was here, he would not dare to criticize the butcher like this. The butcher's face was full of hatred. At this moment, his face was as stiff as a steel plate. His bell-like eyeballs were bulging. It was obvious that he was burning with anger. Ding Meng said again, "I'm here to taste good food, not to eat shit, because I'm a human." After saying this, he ignored the butcher's reaction and waved his hand. The meat on the table formed a line and flowed into his mouth like flowing water. The speed at which he ate made it seem like he was drinking water instead of eating meat. Everyone's eyes widened again. The dozens of tons of meat on the table had been finished by Ding Meng in less than a minute. From his expression, it seemed like he did not care about the meat at all. This was another F** king monster. The butcher had not lost his temper even now. He was quite patient. He could not help but nod in satisfaction. "God of War Ding Meng, you're really something." Ding Meng said, "It's a pity that you don't have enough food. This bit of meat is not enough for me." "It's enough." The butcher stared at him. "You've eaten so much. Let me see if the meat on your body is tasty enough." As soon as he finished speaking, his giant palm whistled through the air. This time, his attack was much faster than before. Although he was as fat as a mountain of meat, his speed was as fast as a phantom. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Ding Meng. At this moment, Ding Meng had a preliminary understanding of the butcher. This person's origin ability index had also broken through the war god level. He was also a pure and traditional tempered origin ability user. Chu Shaoqing also walked the same path. Tempered origin ability was used to train the body's physical quality. Her resistance was unparalleled. When this palm came, Ding Meng slightly raised his elbow. The butcher's palm was immediately blocked, like a steel plate being blocked by a jack. "Good." The butcher's face was filled with excitement. His left palm came from another direction, giving the impression that he wanted to choke Ding Meng to death. This time, Ding Meng could not block it because he felt an invisible force field between the butcher's palms. This force field could not be seen with the naked eye, but its thick and solid aura was even stronger than the wall of holy brilliance. If he was caught in this force field, he would definitely be unable to move. Ding Meng suddenly bounced up into the air. The butcher's palms fiercely clasped together. With a boom, the air twisted and exploded. Shockwaves spread in all directions. The giant dining table, along with the soldiers around it, was sent flying. The butcher raised his head again. Ding Meng, who was in the air, was also coming straight for his face. Ding Meng's elbow was in front, and his hand was behind. The next second, Ding Meng's hand chopped down like lightning. Pa! The hand chopped down accurately on the butcher's left temple. Ding Meng's hand chop had almost never failed. However, this time, the butcher did not fall. Instead, he stood in place and sneered. Ding Meng took a closer look. The butcher's temple seemed to be covered with a thick layer of brown plating. Strictly speaking, this was no longer a simple plating. It was a level above plating. It was a solid source energy crystal that could withstand any kind of attack. Its effect was even better than a shield. This was the result of the crystal armor being cultivated to the extreme. At the same time, this was the first time since Ding Meng's hand chop had been created that it did not repel the enemy in a direct confrontation. Chapter 803. Pa pa pa. Ding Meng slashed out several times, all of his attacks aimed at the butcher's head, but the butcher didn't move at all, allowing Ding Meng to slash at him. The butcher's head was like a crystal ball encased in invisible crystals. Every time Ding Meng slashed at him, the butcher's head would flash slightly, but the butcher was completely unharmed. It's my turn now, isn't it? The butcher suddenly threw a punch at Ding Meng's face. It seemed like an ordinary punch, but Ding Meng suddenly felt like his face was being pierced by countless needles, making it hard for him to open his eyes. This was the first time he had encountered someone with such a solid foundation. He dared to say that he was the only one. Ding Meng suddenly retreated in a straight line. After the butcher's punch missed, he opened his palm and sent out a powerful gust of wind. Other Origin ability users' gust of wind was either like a thin veil or like a river, but this guy's gust of wind was like a pure white steel plate. With a bang, it slammed into Ding Meng's raised wrists. With another boom, Ding Meng was blasted back over 100 meters. He had already floated to the edge of the stage. Countless white Origin energy stars rustled down from the sky above the stage, as if snow was dancing in the sky. The butcher stood proudly in the center of the stage. War God Ding Meng, you're only a siso. Ding Meng was truly shocked. He had rarely met such a ferocious opponent. He even felt that his arms were faintly numb. Guanlin wasn't speaking nonsense. This butcher was very strong, very strong. At the very least, a battle saint would have no chance against him. Most importantly, this guy's defense was too strong. Normal punches and kicks wouldn't be able to hurt him. Ding Meng had already returned catoptric deflection to Chu Shaoqing, so he didn't have any suitable weapons on hand. Shua! Ding Meng's hand suddenly turned red, becoming a sharp dagger. This was Origin energy being released. The butcher narrowed his eyes. He was no fool. He had already seen Ding Meng's body ignite with formless Origin flames, and his aura suddenly rose by a large margin. Haha, this is what you should be like. As soon as he finished speaking, his entire body emitted an invisible flame. The steel plates on the ground melted one after another, turning them all golden. Source energy completely spread out in the arena. With him as the center, 13 huge golden swords appeared out of thin air. These huge swords floated in the air and surrounded him. They were all different in size and shape. Ding Meng found it familiar. Starlight Sword Array. Butcher couldn't help but praise. Good eyesight. Ding Meng had no time to think. He flew up and took the initiative to rush towards the other party. As soon as he moved, the 13 giant swords flew up as well and shot towards Ding Meng. Suddenly, a strong light flashed in all directions, and the soldiers retreated a few hundred meters away. The energy waves were too strong, and it was best to stay away if they did not want to be accidentally injured. Ding! The fiery red Origin energy blade seemed to strike the center of the sword array. The 13 giant swords were immediately knocked aside, but Ding Meng's momentum did not stop there. Good. The butcher couldn't help but praise loudly. War God Ding Meng, you really do have some skill. The giant swords had clearly been knocked aside, but they regrouped in the air. In the blink of an eye, they had formed a brand new super sword. Just looking at this sword's majestic and murderous appearance was enough to intimidate anyone. The butcher's Starlight Sword Array had actually been trained to a very high level. Sword Chi had already enveloped the area, and Ding Meng was in the middle of the array, unable to dodge. He had a deep understanding of sword techniques, especially sword techniques like this one that had already been unleashed. If he tried to dodge, he would be at a disadvantage. It was hard to say whether or not he would be hurt if he continued to be pursued, but the risk of being attacked was too great. At this moment, Ding Meng's speed increased by 6 origin points. His entire body shook violently, and the Overlord's mountain crumbling energy immediately blasted out in all directions. Boom! There was an earth-shattering sound. The tip of the super sword that was descending from the sky first exploded, and then the sword seemed to sink bit by bit into water. It was actually shattered into countless fragments by Ding Meng's energy, and the fragments also shot out in all directions. If the astral wind explosion from before was described as dancing snow, then the destruction of the giant sword now was like the scattering of flowers by fairies. The 70 to 80 soldiers in the distance were set ablaze, and one by one, they were turned into human-shaped origin flames. It was the fragments that shot out that turned them into ashes. They didn't even have time to scream. This kind of power could be said to be truly frightening. You could watch other people's battles, but you couldn't even watch Ding Meng's battle from afar. You couldn't even look at it because if you did, you would die. These people were all great men who had followed the Butcher on his expeditions into outer space. They were the elite troops under his command, and yet they were all wiped out by Ding Meng in a single blow. The Butcher was furious, but he didn't have time to vent his anger because Ding Meng was already in front of him, and it looked like he was going to chop him down with his saber. The Butcher was unusually agile. He rolled to the side and rolled away like a rubber ball. Ding Meng's stab missed, and his entire body floated away from the center of the arena in a straight line. His figure gradually faded until he disappeared from the arena. Oh no! The Butcher realized that he had been tricked because this was a fake body. He didn't expect Ding Meng's doppelganger to be so powerful. By the time he stood up, Ding Meng's real body had already descended from the sky, and his fist was aimed at the top of the Butcher's head. The Butcher could be considered a first-rate master, and he could still react and react at a time like this. He pushed his palms toward the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Both of them were ruthless characters, and they liked to fight head-on. Their palms collided with a blinding white light, and the entire arena collapsed. Even the surrounding buildings were affected by the shock waves, and they shattered layer by layer as if they were being torn apart. Even though the Butcher had blocked Ding Meng's palm strike, Ding Meng also changed his palm into a fist and smashed downwards again. He didn't aim his fist anywhere but at the center of the Butcher's palm. The Butcher's palm was quite wide, so it was quite easy to hit him when he spread out his palm. These two punches were also based on the basics. They were the Vajra cannon force that Ding Meng had trained in the back garden of Planet V4. The Butcher was finally sent flying. He flipped a few times in the air before landing 30 meters away. When he landed, his steps were somewhat unsteady, and he even staggered back a few steps. His shoulder seemed to have caved in a large chunk of the origin form crystal. Evidently, he had been injured by the Vajra cannon force. Yes, his origin form crystal's defenses weren't that easy to break, so Su-chun would just use his penetrating force and cannon force to shock him. The Butcher's expression finally lost its arrogance. Instead, it was replaced by a serious expression. Good kid, it's been 80 years since anyone has been able to injure me. You are the first. His aura began to surge, and it was much stronger than it had been before. From what Ding Meng could sense, the Butcher's origin energy index had probably broken through 50 billion. If the battle continued, he would either have to use the smelting space or the divine light. Otherwise, the situation would be very dangerous. However, he didn't want to do that. This was the headquarters of the Hidden Front. Revealing his trump cards in enemy territory was not a wise decision. Suddenly, the Butcher's aura weakened, and the formless flames on his body began to dim. His gaze fell directly behind Ding Meng, as if he had seen something shocking. In the next instant, Ding Meng's expression changed. It had been a long time since he had felt such fear because he had sensed someone approaching from behind him. This person's footsteps were very light, and there were no fluctuations of aura emanating from his body. If even Ding Meng couldn't sense his strength, then that was enough to prove that this person's strength had reached the pinnacle. However, this wasn't the most important point because there wasn't just one person approaching him. There were two. Aside from the first person, Ding Meng couldn't sense the other person. He had no footsteps, no aura, and no fluctuations. All he had was a dark blind spot created by telekinesis. The other person also cultivated applied telekinesis. If it weren't for this, Ding Meng wouldn't have been able to tell that there was more than one person approaching him. Only an expert like Ding Meng would know how terrifying it was to not be able to sense someone approaching him from behind. Ding Meng slowly turned around. He finally saw clearly that the person with light footsteps was no different from an ordinary Hidden Front mercenary. He was wearing a black shirt black pants, and a black brick mask on his face. Even his eyes weren't exposed. He was like a ghost that appeared out of thin air. If there was a difference between him and an ordinary mercenary, it would be the black scabbard on his belt. It was the classic shape of an ancient sword. When Ding Meng saw the ancient sword, a thoughtful look appeared in her eyes. This person was not at the front. The leader was another black-clothed man. In addition to the mask on his face, he was also wearing a black hood, which covered his head even more tightly. However, his eyes were exposed. It was a very strange pair of eyes. His gaze was like a raging fire, but also as calm as a pool of autumn water. If you stared at him for too long, you would inevitably hallucinate. This person was unfathomable. The two men slowly walked into the pit. The leader of the black-clothed men suddenly smiled. "Welcome." It was a male voice, but it sounded very young. It was also very magnetic and crisp. Ding Meng stood still and asked tentatively, "Boss?" The man in black laughed again. "I don't dare to call myself boss in front of Mr. Ting. However, I am indeed the person you're looking for. If you don't mind, you can call me number one." This was the real boss of the hidden front. Ding Meng's gaze fell behind him. "Since you're able to walk arm in arm with boss, this must be officer number two, right?" Number two didn't answer. He didn't even move. He was like a statue. The leader of the hidden front smiled and explained, "Number two has always been a quiet person. Please forgive him, Mr. Ting." Ding Meng replied without batting an eyelid, "It's okay." Only then did the leader of the hidden front turn his gaze to Butcher. "Number five, go back and treat your injuries." Butcher stood still. The leader of the hidden front seemed to know what he was thinking. "You should be the one who's convinced." Butcher's attitude became very respectful. "Boss, please speak clearly." The leader of the hidden front said meaningfully, "You should be thanking Mr. Ting. He only used a little of his strength. At the same time, he went easy on you. Go back to the fleet and reflect on your actions." Only then did Butcher bow his head slightly to Ding Meng. It was considered that he had admitted defeat to Ding Meng. After Butcher left, the leader of the hidden front said, "Mr. Ting, I've heard a lot about you. It's unfortunate that I didn't know you. It's really beneath your dignity to come to this small space station of mine. Number five didn't mean to offend you." Ding Meng said, "But he really wanted to treat me to a meal." The leader of the hidden front laughed. "I won't hide it from you. Gu Yu is his grandnephew. He was a little impulsive. Gu Yu had been killed by Ding Meng in the Rainbow Star Zone. It turned out that Butcher was related to him. That was why Butcher had rushed over to take revenge the moment he heard the news." Ding Meng finally understood why Butcher's astral sword formation looked so familiar. Gu Yu must have been taught by him. However, Butcher's battle techniques were much better than Gu Yu's. The leader of the hidden front stretched out his hand and said, "Mr. Ting, you're a guest. Since you've come to my station as a guest, I naturally have to treat you well. If you don't mind, please return to the hotel. I'll serve you fine wine and delicacies." Chapter 804. The sky was still gloomy, making everyone's mood gloomy. The hotel was still the same hotel as yesterday, and the restaurant was still the same. The only difference was that the small round table had been replaced with a luxurious big table, and the simple buffet had been replaced with a dazzling array of dishes. The instructor, the station chief, and the butler were already waiting quietly at the table. These changes in the restaurant meant that Ding Meng had passed the butcher's test and had truly become the hidden front's boss VIP. Ding Meng realized that he had never seen any of these 50 to 60 dishes before. It seemed like this was a truly high-class welcome banquet. The group quickly took their seats, but strangely, number two did not sit down. He stood like a javelin behind the hidden front's boss, looking like a loyal bodyguard. However, it was difficult to assess this bodyguard strength. There were probably not many bodyguards like him in the entire empire. This time, there were not only drinks on the table, but also wine. Unfortunately, the hidden front's boss glass was not filled with drinks or wine, but plain water. Everyone else's glasses were filled with wine, and only the butler was drinking a drink. "Please." The hidden front's boss raised his glass. Ding Meng poured himself half a glass of iced red tea and said, "Please." His action caused everyone's expression to change. The boss had never respected anyone, but he had made an exception this time. However, Ding Ming still did not pour him any wine. This guy was really bold. However, there was a hint of a smile in Boss Yinfeng's eyes. How bold? Ding Ming also smiled and said, Boss, I can't refuse your hospitality. I just don't have the habit of drinking. The Hidden Front's boss said, but it's a good habit. Ding Ming smiled and said, your habit is not bad either. The Hidden Front boss said, water clears the heart. If the heart is not disturbed, the path will not be obstructed. Ding Ming put down his glass and said meaningfully, it seems to me that your heart is a bit disturbed. The Hidden Front's boss was interested. Oh, Mr. Ting can tell? Ding Ming said, if I'm not wrong, boss seems to have encountered some kind of problem. The Hidden Front's boss's eyes flickered. Mr. Ting is indeed a hero among men. He has been to so many places, and his experience is top-notch. Ding Ming said, that's not it. I just find it strange. The Hidden Front boss said, Mr. Ting, please speak. Ding Ming said, the instructor showed me around the modified factory yesterday. Boss must have put in a lot of effort to maintain this business. The leader of the Hidden Front was silent for a moment before he said, it is indeed not an easy task to have Chuang Yu continue to provide blood for this place. His words undoubtedly confirmed Ding Ming's speculation last night. Guan Lin was just his tool. Ding Ming said casually, Miss Guan is still not bad. When he said that, the atmosphere at the table suddenly became tense. The butler and the others all looked surprised. This kid really knew how to touch a sore spot. Unexpectedly, the leader of the Hidden Front laughed. They say that women are like clothes, while friends are like hands and feet. With a friend like Mr. Ting, it doesn't matter if you wear clothes like Miss Guan or not. Besides, Mr. Ting has quite a number of close female friends. One more piece of clothing won't make much of a difference. Ding Ming said in a low voice, unfortunately, I'm not boss's friend. The leader of the Hidden Front said, you will be soon. Ding Ming asked curiously, oh. The leader of the Hidden Front said, there are many types of friends. Ding Ming said, I wonder which type I belong to. The leader of the Hidden Front laughed. Mr. Ting and I should be the type that relies on each other. Ding Ming asked, why do you say that? The leader of the Hidden Front said, because I have something that you're looking for and you have abilities that I don't have. It's a good opportunity for us to work together. You're right. I was just worrying when a big shot like Mr. Ting came to visit. It seems like this is a blessing from the heavens. Ding Ming laughed and said, you're talking as if I'm the only one who can solve your problem. The leader of the Hidden Front said, there are many big shots, but there's only one person who can do it as easily as Mr. Ting. Ding Ming said, you're making me feel like I'm starting to believe you. The leader of the Hidden Front shook his head and said, I'm not trying to flatter you. It's the truth. Zhong Shan of the Federation can be considered an important hero. 100 years ago, he was the leader of the Devouring World War. He led many experts to defeat the Devouring World War's army. 100 years ago, he had already entered the warlord level. I wonder what level he's at now. Ding Ming said thoughtfully, he is indeed a big shot. The leader of the Hidden Front sighed and said, it's a pity that the older you get, the more cowardly you become. This person is a stickler for the rules, spending his old age peacefully in Shenghui. To those in the top circle, this is called not thinking about making progress. Ding Ming said, you can also say that he's building a cart behind closed doors. The leader of the Hidden Front nodded and said, after the Devouring World War's immortal elemental king, this person was extremely talented and worked hard to rule the world. In the war 100 years ago, she was almost invincible. It's a pity that she lacked the foresight to know how to make good use of people. In the end, she was harmed by her own people. Not long ago, I heard that it was because Mr. Ting was traveling around the devouring world that she was able to escape. Ding Ming also nodded and said, that's true. The leader of the Hidden Front continued, the president and his wife of the Holy Grail Federation are actually two big shots. It's a pity that they're too obsessed with power. It's difficult for them to achieve great things. Ding Ming said, boss, you seem to know these people very well. Just a little bit. The leader of the Hidden Front waved his hand and said, these are all people on the table, just like the head of the Norse Empire. They're all people who stand at the top of the pyramid. We always know some trivial things about them. Ding Meng said, "Could it be that there are other people in the dark?" The leader of the Hidden Front said, "The Fifth Lord can be considered an outstanding person. I believe you know him." Ding Meng obviously knew him, but he had never seen him before. The Fifth Lord of the Black Handprint was even more mysterious than the leader of the Hidden Front. The leader of the Hidden Front said, "These people all have one thing in common. They've all been quiet for too long. They're not like Mr. Ting, who's experienced and adventurous." Ding Meng sighed and said, "Boss, you've overestimated me." The leader of the Hidden Front said, "I'm not overestimating you. I'm still confident about that. Just look at this small space station of mine. It's been around for 100 years, but no one has ever discovered it. But you managed to find it so quickly." Ding Meng smiled and said, "I was just lucky." This was obviously a humble way of putting it. Actually, it was not that difficult to find this place. However, the only person who could find this place and sit at this table to eat was probably Ding Meng. Other things aside, if it were anyone else, that butcher from earlier would have been swallowed alive. Besides, the leader of the Hidden Front was sitting at the head of the table. On his left was the instructor, and on his right were the station chief and the butler. Behind him was number 2, which vaguely gave off the vibe of opposing Ding Meng. Ding Meng was confident that he could defeat the instructor, the station chief, and the butler. However, with the 3 of them working together, Ding Meng believed that even if he could win, he would have to pay a heavy price. If the unfathomable number 2 joined the fray, Ding Meng would have no chance of winning. As for the leader of the Hidden Front, Ding Meng could not see through him at all. Even with the strength of this group of people, there was still something they could not do. Ding Meng could not think of any other reason other than the key to the land of entropy. Ding Meng suddenly changed the topic. The situation in the fertile chalk system is now split in 2. The Empire is in the south, and the Frogmen are in the north. Only the central spiral galaxy can't be touched. Boss's space station is deep in the core. The leader of the Hidden Front asked in return, "Is this what you find strange?" Ding Meng said, "Your space station has been operating here for over 100 years. It just so happens that you released your regenerated warriors in the last few years. This obviously doesn't make sense." The leader of the Hidden Front stared at him. "What do you think, Mr. Ting?" Ding Meng said, "The appearance of the regenerated warriors in the front line seems to balance the balance between the Empire and the Frogmen. But in reality, it's a very big risk. Because no matter which side attacks unilaterally, as long as they get serious, I believe that these regenerated warriors will not be able to withstand the interstellar fleet." The leader of the Hidden Front said, "That makes sense." Ding Meng continued, "You spent so much effort to cultivate such a force, but it's definitely not for the sake of showing off to both sides. Doing that would be too stupid. If I'm not wrong, the purpose of this force entering the front line is to attract the attention of both sides, so that both sides will hesitate to attack. Then, they will use their private forces to investigate the Hidden Front. While both sides are not fighting, you will be able to achieve your true goal. Your goal is Rainforest Planet 5 below." Everyone at the table was silent. After a long time, the leader of the Hidden Front sighed. "That's why I said that only someone like you, Mr. Ting, can find this place and become friends with me." His words undoubtedly confirmed that Ding Meng's deduction was correct. He suddenly stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, "Mr. Ting, please come with me." This time, even number 2 did not follow. The leader of the Hidden Front directly led Ding Meng downstairs and went straight to the entrance of the space station. A Songqing exploration ship had already been prepared on the huge space launch pad. Only the leader and Ding Meng were on the ship. The ship quickly left the port and flew towards Rainforest Planet 5, which could be seen with the naked eye. The surface of Rainforest Planet 5 was actually similar to Rainforest Planet 1. The sky was foggy and rainy, and the surroundings were swamps with ugly trees growing everywhere. However, there was a simple spaceport built on the ground. There was only one person on the landing pad to welcome them. It was a young woman. She was short and had delicate features. She was wearing a utility suit and looked like a well-mannered student. When she saw the spaceship's connection hatch open, The woman immediately came up to them. "Boss, Old 7, let me introduce you. This is Mr. Ding Meng," the leader of the Hidden Front said. He was calling her Old 7, so the person in front of him had to be Officer Number 7. However, Number 7 did not seem to have much of a reaction when she heard Ding Meng's name. She just said calmly, "Welcome." The leader of the Hidden Front turned to Ding Meng and said, "You can call her Doctor. Doctor will show you around and answer your questions." Chapter 805. This young woman called Doctor looked to be in her 40s, but her entire body exuded the aura of a mutation-type warlord. Her aura was almost exactly the same as Meng Yan's. Could she be an expert in reconnaissance? However, Ding Meng soon realized that he was wrong. Doctor was really just a warlord. Most of the origin points in her body were located in her brain, and there were only 2 in her heart. Ding Meng could not help but ask, "Doctor should be a statistician for admin-type origin ability users, right? How did you become an origin power warlord?" Doctor could not help but reveal a surprised expression. "You're an expert." The 2 of them walked side by side in the rain. Doctor was heading toward the rainforest outside the spaceport. She did not like to beat around the bush like senior instructor and the others. She directly explained to Ding Meng, Planet Number 5's atmosphere originally had an extremely complicated energy radiation layer and kinetic energy wall created by the rebound field. It took us 15 years just to remove these obstacles before we finally built a simple spaceport that allows spaceships to land. Ding Meng listened attentively. Although Doctor's words were simple, the content was very shocking. However, only small units like spaceships can land. Even slightly larger medium-sized units can't. Doctor pointed at the forest in the distance. "Look over there and sense it carefully." At this moment, senior instructor of the Hidden Front did not follow them. Ding Meng scanned the forest with his telekinesis. There was nothing special about the forest itself, but there were some stars floating above the forest. This was the fine, invisible origin energy in the air. However, when he looked at it carefully, Ding Meng was truly shocked. Unexpectedly, Doctor's words were even more shocking. "Based on my many years of analysis, I discovered that this is a completely new type of energy. It's a combination of the legendary divine energy, demon's energy, human origin energy, ion kinetic energy, and an unknown psionic energy. This psionic energy is similar to the demon's energy, but it's not pure. Sorry, my knowledge is shallow, so I can't accurately define it." Ding Meng looked at the young woman in shock. "If you call this shallow, then I'm a real idiot." In fact, this was also the reason why he was surprised, because this origin energy molecule was the magic energy in Guanlin's body. Why was it called magic energy? This was because the demon's dark and yin energy was the dominant force, while the holy light energy only made up a small portion. The 2 of them came to the edge of the forest. Ding Meng saw a miniature base station built under a giant tree. The so-called base station was a small tempered room with 3 large cabins installed inside. It was connected to the spaceport command building. Ding Meng asked, "Is this place for people to cultivate?" The doctor nodded. "This is a base station that was developed in the early stages. It can indeed help with cultivation. I became a warlord in this place. It took me a total of 9 years, and my cultivation speed was very fast. For an admin-type origin ability user to become a warlord in 9 years, this wasn't a fast speed, but a cheat." Ding Meng looked thoughtfully at the tempered room. He wondered if Teacher Zhao Yu and Teacher Jia Fa had been trained in this place. The doctor's mind was very sharp, and he seemed to know what Rinpochian was thinking. Currently, only the top 10 core members of Planet 5 have come down here. Mr. Ting is the first one after us. Ding Meng immediately understood. The magic energy here was most likely collected and then supplied to the factory on the space station. Finally, it was transferred into the bodies of the regenerated warriors, allowing them to rapidly improve their combat ability in a short period of time. So, the core source of the regenerated warriors' power was here. But why did the boss of the Hidden Front bring him here? At this time, the doctor said again, "Mr. Ting, please follow me inside." As they walked inside, they arrived at a denser and lush forest. The strange thing was that the interior of the forest was not humid at all. Instead, it was very dry, and the density of magic energy molecules in the air had increased. The doctor's pace was very fast, and he was very familiar with the terrain here. In just a few leaps, he had covered dozens of meters. At this moment, he had arrived at a tempered room that was relatively larger than the base station. The room was located under a big tree, and there was a huge rock next to it. The rock looked like some kind of living creature, and it gave off a very uncomfortable feeling. The doctor said, "This is a safe house. If you encounter any danger, enter the house to hide and rest." Ding Meng asked curiously, "Is there still danger here?" The doctor said, "Please circulate your origin energy and release your aura. Don't increase it too quickly." While she was giving the reminder, she circulated her origin energy first. A large wave spread out, and a wonderful scene appeared. The rock that looked like a living creature actually glowed with a grayish-brown color. Its entire body was taking shape at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was not a rock, but some kind of living creature. This living creature looked like a leopard. It was made up of light, and its lines were very strong, but it also gave off an unreal feeling. Ding Meng said in surprise, "Your energy waves activated it?" The doctor nodded. "Yes. This strange fossil seems to be some kind of high-end energy collector. As soon as someone nearby circulates their origin energy, it will automatically be activated. The strangest thing is that it seems to have a life of its own." She suddenly stopped and retracted her energy waves. The gray leopard creature immediately dimmed and turned into a motionless fossil. Ding Meng took 2 steps forward and slowly circulated his origin energy. In fact, he had only circulated 1/5 of the origin energy. In an instant, the rock glowed with a rainbow-colored light, and its size rapidly increased by 3 times. It was almost as big as a tank. If this leopard really existed, then its combat strength should be at the level of an intermediate combat master. Ding Meng also quickly retracted his energy waves. However, when he turned around, he saw that the doctor was still standing in place with a dazed expression on her face. "What's wrong?" Ding Meng asked. The doctor finally came to her senses. She said with a slightly surprised tone, "So you're this powerful. No wonder Boss personally brought you down here. Boss should be stronger than me, right?" Ding Meng asked calmly. This time, he had asked the right person. This doctor was relatively naive and was not good at feigning civility. "I don't know Boss's true strength. No one has ever seen him in action," the doctor replied calmly. Ding Meng said, "Even Officer Number 2 has never seen him before?" The doctor said, "I've never seen Officer Number 2 in action either." Ding Meng wondered if the doctor had stayed in this place for decades. Had she never left? Why was her codename the Doctor? Perhaps she was passionate about research and did not like fighting. Sure enough, the doctor was not very interested in this topic. She asked in return, "What do you think of this supernatural phenomenon?" Ding Meng carefully observed the fossil. "I have a feeling that this thing does not belong to our main star system. Perhaps it belongs to an extragalactic civilization." There was finally a hint of approval in the professor's cold expression. "You're a real expert. Actually, I think so too." She continued to walk deeper into the forest as she spoke. Ding Meng had no choice but to follow. "Why do you think so?" The doctor said, "The frogmen suddenly appeared in the Pan-Shin star system 780 years ago. At that time, the true martialist civilization and the sacred splendor civilization were not developed enough to have direct contact with them. It was not until 200 years ago, when the dynasty and the frogmen encountered each other in the fertile chalk system, that we gradually gained a certain level of understanding of this alien civilization. Why did they come to the sacred splendor star system? Although this civilization's technology is not as good as ours in some aspects, their reproduction ability, expansion speed, and invasion power are too strong. Do they have some special purpose?" Ding Meng could only smile bitterly. He could not answer these questions. The doctor said, "The war between the dynasty and the frogmen has been going on in the fertile chalk system for 2 centuries. In order to compete for various resources, both sides have engaged in large-scale battles, as many as 12 times. The number of local battles is also innumerable. The casualties on both sides are astronomical. At first, I also thought that both sides were fighting for territory and resources. Dingming asked, "What about now?" The doctor said, "I don't think so anymore. After paying such a heavy price, is it really just to find a few large crystal mines, transport back a bunch of reverse source crystals, or synthesize some source cores and silver core stones? Even if these resources are found, can they make up for the losses on both sides?" Ding Ming understood. "What you mean is that there is another extragalactic civilization hidden in the depths of the fertile chalk system. Not only is the dynasty looking for it, but the frogmen are also looking for it," the doctor said calmly. "This is only my speculation. I don't have any evidence or information to support this theory." Ding Ming said, "But your speculation is infinitely close to the truth." The doctor's expression was a little dazed, and his eyes dimmed. Unfortunately, they didn't believe me. They even thought that I was crazy and chased me out. I was almost beaten to death by them. "Who are they?" Ding Ming was curious. The doctor's eyes regained their luster. "Fortunately, the boss took me in and sent me here to conduct research in this area." Ding Ming didn't say a word. He had discovered another problem. Ever since he came to the space station, every core member of the hidden Vanguard organization he came into contact with had a past that no one knew of. Regardless of whether their past was good or bad, glorious or gloomy, it had changed them greatly, even qualitatively. Ding Ming guessed that the doctor might have been an academic authority in some research organization. At this time, the two had already passed through the forest. At the end of the forest was a cliff. Looking down, there was a surging river. The water was very turbulent. This distance was estimated to be about 100 meters high. On the other side of the river, there was a forest with a lower terrain. Similarly, there was no end in sight. However, in the middle of the forest stood a giant holy tree. Ding Ming was confident that he was not mistaken. This was the holy tree that had appeared in the Great Sage Dynasty, Planet Medina, Camp V4, and Flame Star Canyon. Unlike the holy trees he had seen before, this holy tree was 10 times the size of the other holy trees. At the top of the tree, there was a rolling eye of light that illuminated the entire world. The strange thing was that the energy radiating from the pupil of light was not divine light energy, but demonic energy. The doctor did not seem surprised at all. "All right, we are now at the edge of the beginner exploration zone. If we continue moving in the direction of the tree, we will enter the intermediate exploration zone." Chapter 806. There was also a safe house near the cliff. The professor drove out a simple aircraft from the safe house. It was similar to a two-person motorcycle, and its power system was, of course, crystal energy. The aircraft carried the two of them across the river and slowly landed in the forest on the other side. Ding Ming learned from the professor that he had been working on Planet 5 for 26 years. Of these 26 years, 15 of them were spent in outer space, waiting for the hidden front to clear out the obstacles in the atmosphere. In the remaining 11 years, the professor had been exploring and cultivating, gradually grasping the rules of the various vegetation and rocks on the surface of the planet. Only then did they arrive at the so-called intermediate exploration zone. The nature of this place was the same as the super bridge outside the energy crystal. Every step forward was difficult, and every step forward required a huge price to pay. For a moment, Ding Ming was very impressed by the professor. After all, the professor was a non-combat origin ability user. To explore all the way here from the spaceport, not only did he pay a high price, but he also had perseverance that ordinary people could not hope to achieve. "You are a true academic authority." Ding Ming could not help but praise. The professor did not think much of it. He replied calmly, "Do you think that we have succeeded by coming here? What we're doing now is not even the beginning." Ding Ming noticed that in the forest on the other side of the river, the number of fossils on the ground had increased, and the density of mana in the air had increased. The entire forest was filled with a strange aura. Under the giant holy tree, Ding Ming and the professor were like two ants under the feet of a monster. The professor explained again, if these fossils are some kind of energy collector, then this big tree is the energy-gathering matrix lighthouse. She was worried that Ding Meng would not understand, so she explained, this is like the sensor cabin to the server. Ding Meng nodded. If we do not use origin energy, we will not activate these fossils, but ordinary people will not be able to reach our position. The professor said, I think this is the outer perimeter. The outer perimeter is more like a warning you not to use force, warning you not to go in. Ding Meng asked, what about the inner perimeter? The professor pointed to the holy tree and said, start from this tree and walk all the way in. The situation is completely reversed. She started to circulate her origin energy again. This time, she circulated her origin energy to the limit of an advanced warlord. She turned her head and said, Mr. Ting, don't follow me. Be careful. This time, she slowed down her pace and walked towards a tree-lined path. As she walked, a few red lights suddenly flashed on both sides of the path. The ghostly lights appeared without any warning. The doctor seemed to have expected these red lights to appear. He waved his palms to parry a few times before retreating. With Mr. Ting's strength, you should be able to see it clearly, right? The professor asked. Ding Meng's expression was very serious. Not only did he see it clearly, but he also saw it very carefully. The red lights on the side of the road were the strange leopards they had encountered before. However, these leopards were not fossilized. Ding Meng could not tell how they had appeared. From what he could tell, these leopards seemed to have suddenly appeared from another space. Fortunately, the professor was not strong, and the corresponding strength of these leopards was not strong either, so the professor was able to parry them. I call this kind of leopard the shadow leopard. The professor was very confident when it came to academic matters. This name was really appropriate. The red lights really seemed to have swept out from the shadows, and they were so fast that they were caught off guard. However, what surprised Ding Meng the most was that wherever his telekinesis vision passed through, there was nothing unusual about the forest. Every blade of grass, tree, flower, and leaf was completely still. His telekinesis vision could not see where the shadow leopard had flown out from. In other words, his telekinesis vision had lost its effect in this place. Who else has entered this place? Ding Meng asked. The professor said, other than me, it was the boss, number 2, number 3, number 6, and number 8. Ding Meng thought about it. Even if they had entered, they would not be able to go too far. His past experience in the Divine Light Square had taught him that if he increased his strength bit by bit and hit his trump cards and fought with opponents of similar strength, he would only be able to advance a few dozen kilometers at most. It was not that he could not go further, but it would be very risky to go further. Ding Meng had a lot of experience in exploration. He knew very well that the best way for every mission and adventure was to leave enough room for himself. Rushing forward was the most taboo. Suddenly, he had an idea. Since his telekinesis vision was ineffective, he could try the serene dream projection that the immortal Yuan King had taught him. What if this ghost vision was effective? Ding Meng mobilized his origin energy and spread it out in his brain. His vision immediately turned gray. Sure enough, these stones were inanimate objects. However, in the forest, there were clouds of black fog drifting everywhere. This was definitely not an ordinary poisonous black fog, but some kind of energy spirit with consciousness. They seemed to be in a deep sleep. Ding Meng looked carefully. This kind of black spirit was everywhere in the sky and on the ground. Once origin energy was activated, they would be alerted. Then, they would use the stone to take shape and kill you by surprise. What kind of life forms were these? Why were they everywhere in this forest? Ding Meng had a million questions in his mind. After thinking about it, Ding Meng turned his head and said, Professor, there are still many things that I don't understand. I'll have to rely on you from now on. Step back a little. After he finished speaking, he changed his vision and began to use his telekinesis technique. This time, he used a telekinesis technique called Boundless Vitality from the Blue Spirit technique. An illusory blue spirit divine tree suddenly appeared in the middle of the path. The tree was not very tall, but its entire body was green and translucent. Whoosh! The tree's roots spread out in all directions, creating rings of green waves that resembled ripples in a lake. In an instant, they spread out in the middle of the forest, causing the entire forest to turn green. This was a high-level technique that the tree god had once used. The environment of Azure Tree Planet was primitive, and many poor tree ants were unable to survive. It was the tree god who had created these telekinesis fluctuations to maintain the vitality of the grasslands and forests. The principle behind this technique was that the healing energy of the smelting space could be converted into telekinesis strings through the model, which had a very powerful purifying effect. Of course, Ding Ming did not deliberately hide it. The professor could also see the green spirit divine tree's telekinesis model with his naked eye. The professor was shocked once again. You also cultivated telekinesis. The professor could only see the energy of the boundless vitality technique, but he could not see the spirits. In his vision, with the model as the center, the surrounding black spirit began to retreat. They seemed to hate these fluctuations. This was also Ding Ming's train of thought. No matter where these mysterious spirits came from, they were nourished by mana in this forest. Therefore, he might as well try the green energy. Who knows, it might have a miraculous effect. Once the boundless vitality technique was brought out, Ding Ming and the professor were able to move freely through the forest. You've solved the problem that I've been unable to solve for 9 years. There was a hint of envy in the professor's voice. Ding Ming waved his hand. We should be inside now. Although the barrier at the periphery is a warning, it can't explain the energy composition of these shadow leopards. The professor was an expert. When she heard this, she immediately knew what Ding Ming was thinking. She pondered for a moment before saying, I have a bold idea. I wonder if Mr. Ting is interested in hearing it. Ding Ming said, Please speak. The professor said, My knowledge is shallow, so I'll have to embarrass myself. Mr. Ting, if you've studied the Devouring World before, you should know that the Devouring World's Tai Chi magical lake is known as the Sacred Lake. Ding Ming said, I know about this. The professor said, Yin and Yang, black and white, cold and hot, sweet and bitter, they all correspond to each other and complement each other. However, I feel that they cannot be combined into one. There is no such thing in the universe because it violates this law. Ding Ming listened quietly. The professor continued, Similarly, although the Protoss energy and the demon's energy are opposites, they cannot coexist on the same thing. For example, these shadow leopards clearly have the majority of demon's energy in them, but they also have a small amount of Protoss energy. Ding Ming turned to look at her. Do you have a deep understanding of Protoss energy? He was just short of saying, Do you know about the energy of Xinguang technology? The doctor obviously did not know. She smiled apologetically. Sorry, I know very little about the energy of the Protoss. I can only tell that it is the energy of the Protoss from its purity and aura. This kind of energy is much purer than the inverse crystal, and its aura gives people a pure and positive signal. The energy of the demonic race is the complete opposite. Ding Ming said meaningfully, but your body is also smelted with this kind of Pandora demon energy. You should know that it is not really beneficial to you. I know. The professor was calm. This kind of Pandora demon energy has a great negative effect on people. It can affect people's emotions. But as long as I continue to study it, it is not a big deal to me. Ding Ming could only sigh in admiration. There are not only specialists in the field, but there were also fanatics in the field. The professor was a typical example. The professor continued, My guess is that this place was originally occupied by the Protoss energy, but I don't know what happened, but the demon's energy gradually multiplied. Based on the characteristics of these shadow leopards, I feel that the Protoss energy is dying out, but the demon's energy is gradually taking shape, just like. She paused and finally found a suitable analogy. Just like a rose. It was originally receiving the nourishment of the sun and rain, and finally blooming. But halfway through, it was polluted, and in the end, it will bear poisonous fruit. Ding Ming was silent. In fact, he had come to the same conclusion. The reason was simple. Why did the hidden front boss put the professor on Planet 5? The purpose was to study these strange phenomena and then go straight to the heart of the forest. The professor's speed was fast, but this speed was not enough to satisfy him. It was not that the professor was taking too long, but the regenerated warriors had already appeared in the field of vision of the two armies. The hidden front boss was already trying to buy time, which meant that time was running out. Combined with the professor's point of view, it proved that the mysterious land on Planet 5 was about to undergo new changes. The hidden front boss must know something, and he had been here before. Let's go in and take a look, Ding Ming decided. Chapter 807. After passing through the second forest, a huge lake appeared in front of them. The lake was formed by a waterfall that was hundreds of meters tall. The lake was vast, and there was a small island in the middle of the lake. 16 towering holy trees formed a circle on the island, and each of the trees had a dazzling mana eye rolling on top of them. The energy waves were so strong that the academician could barely stand still. The ground in the circle seemed to be a stone formation, and it was covered in strange runes. If it were not for the holy trees, Ding Ming would have thought that he was back in the Devourer's realm. This was indeed a strange place. The mana eye was the power of the demons. The holy trees were the energy of the holy light, and the formation was similar to the Devourer's realm. However, he did not know what the formation was. With such a mixture hidden here, it would be strange if there was nothing wrong with it. This is the first time I've been here. The professor gazed into the distance silently. The 16 holy trees gave off a majestic aura. It was truly a spectacular sight. Ding Ming thought to himself, this must be the academician's first time here, but it might not be the first time the leader of the Hidden Front had been here. This place might be related to the secrets of the land of entropy. Was this the so-called key? Ding Ming scanned the area with his telekinesis vision again. The academician also turned on her wrist device to scan the image. After a long time, he finally made a decision. Let's not go any further. Let's go back the way we came. The academician nodded. I was thinking the same thing. Although the academician was not as experienced as Ding Ming, she knew that they could not go any further. The energy waves in front of them were strong enough to indicate the mysterious unknown. She was already satisfied that they had reached this place. The two returned to the spaceport. The sky was already dark, but the cold drizzle did not stop. The academician brought Ding Ming back to the third floor of the terminal. This was her office. The room was very simple. Other than the large desk with the photon computer, there was nothing else in the room. There was not even a chair. Do you usually work standing up? Ding Ming was curious. The academician was transferring the information collected from her wrist device to the photon computer. A few screens rose in the room, and they were full of strange pictures and information. They looked like strange creatures and materials. There's nothing wrong with standing. It's better for me to focus. The professor replied nonchalantly. What are these? Ding Ming leaned over. He saw the professor comparing the picture of the island with another picture of the same island. The system showed that the similarity between the two was 82%. The professor said, "This is an alien ruin. I went there with my classmates many years ago." You have classmates? Ding Ming was even more curious now. The professor replied, Of course I do. This classmate of mine specializes in researching extraterrestrial civilizations. Back then, he was also a top student of the Emperor Star University. Ding Ming asked, Who was your classmate? The doctor's hand that was operating the screen suddenly stopped, and his expression became absent-minded again. His name is Xin Shi, and he has been missing for many years. Ding Ming said, It seems that this classmate of yours is very important to you. The doctor nodded. Yes, we were all taught by the same mentor. We all have the same goal, which is to explore the ruins of the extraterrestrial civilization located in the main star system. Ding Ming looked at the picture on the screen and asked, Did you guys find it? The professor revealed a rare look of sadness. We found it. This is a completely new ruin of the Protoss civilization. However, Shinshi gave him a lot of basic information and let me leave on a lifeboat alone. Ding Meng was even more curious now. Why? The professor stared at the table in a daze. He must have known that some kind of disaster was coming and left the chance of survival to me. Later, I found out that on their way back, the starship had an accident and crashed in space. Both he and my mentor went missing. Ding Meng asked, "So you've been researching this all this time?" The professor said, "Yes, I returned to the Empire, but the people in the Space Center did not believe me at all. They thought that I was traumatized, so they chased me out and almost beat me to death." Ding Meng thought to himself. So the professor was a member of the Empire's Space Department, and it was very likely that he was an expert. However, this did not feel right. Even if they did not believe you, they would not go so far as to kill you. The professor must have known something that he should not have known. The professor said, "Fortunately, the boss saved me and sent me here. This planet number 5 is very similar to the ruin from before. This way, I can continue my research." "You are still too naive and too obsessed with academic research," Ding Meng thought to himself. "The boss of the Hidden Front would not be so kind as to save you. He must have his own motives." Ding Meng asked, "Who is your mentor?" The professor said, "You might not know even if I told you. His name is Harsini Sinji Bena E. Martinez. He is also a professor." Ding Meng was shocked beyond words. At this moment, he remembered many things. Dr. Hashinta had been maimed to death by the Chu family members on the Kunping starship. His student, Xiao Ji, had taken a bullet for him and died from a headshot. That Xiao Ji was obviously Dr. Hashinta's classmate. It turned out that they were both Dr. Hashinta's students, and the ruins Hashinta had found were the remnants of the little rascal's spirit body. Many clues were connected in an instant. Shinsi must have known about the Mao Xing civilization's Xinguang technology. This secret was too important. He must have not wanted to involve the professor, so he sent the professor to the lifeboat in advance and left alone. Ding Meng suddenly said something shocking. "You are researching the Mao Xing civilization?" The professor turned around with a look of disbelief. How did you know?" This was her biggest secret. She had not even mentioned it to the boss of the Hidden Front. Ding Meng did not answer. He slowly raised his index finger and summoned the rotating Xinguang singularity. "Is this what you're looking for?" The professor's eyes widened. She was an authority in this field and clearly understood the type of energy wave. She was already so shocked that she could not speak. Ding Meng was expressionless. "I am a warrior from the Mao Xing civilization." The professor was dumbfounded. "You are the person cultivated by the Protoss civilization?" Ding Meng sighed and retracted the singularity. "Professor Harksini is indeed dead. He was killed in order to protect the Mao Xing civilization secret. This happened many years ago when they were on their way back." The professor's eyes immediately turned red. Ding Meng said again, "The other warrior from the Mao Xing civilization has already avenged you on the spot." "What about Shinsi?" the professor immediately asked. Ding Meng sighed. "Shinsi sacrificed himself in order to protect Professor Harksini." The professor's body went limp. She felt as if she had aged several decades in an instant. Ding Meng could also see that the professor and Shinsi had a very close relationship. Ding Meng said seriously, "Professor, listen to me. This matter is very complicated. Don't get involved anymore if you trust me." The professor was silent and looked very hesitant. Ding Meng said, "Your research direction is correct. The Protoss civilization's power has been contaminated by magic energy. You can't stay in this place any longer. If you stay any longer, you'll be in big trouble." Although the professor was simple, it did not mean that he was stupid. "You came here for the key?" Ding Meng immediately asked, "Where is the key?" The professor sighed. "The key is not with the boss." Ding Meng was stunned again. The professor sighed even harder. "The boss told me that the key is in the hands of another person. That person is an extremely powerful enemy of his. That person would never give the key to him. Even the boss of the Hidden Front described him as extremely powerful. It seemed that this enemy was also a super expert. It was impossible to snatch the key by force." Ding Meng pondered and said, It seems that he sent you here not to find the key, because you won't be able to find it either. However, if there's a key, there must be a lock. I understand now. He wants you to find the lock. The professor also understood. The island in the middle of the lake is very similar to the Mao ruins that the professor found years ago. It is very likely that the lock is located there. Ding Meng said he is trying to use another method to open the lock. He believes that my arrival is a possibility. Actually, Ding Meng was also secretly shocked. Based on the hidden front information sources, it was impossible that the boss did not know that he had the divine light energy. Let's go back. Ding Meng immediately made a decision. The professor was surprised. Go back where? Ding Meng said, back to the space station. Go back to the Empire and leave this place. He still had some protective feelings for the professor. After all, Little Rascal was saved by Hashinta, and the professor was Hashina's student. He could not let the professor repeat the tragedy of Hashinta. Then, when are we going back? The professor obviously believed him. Ding Meng said, there's no time to lose. Now is the time. There were 5 backup transport spaceships on the helipad. Not long after the spaceship took off, the main control console's communication link was automatically generated. It was a mirror image of the station master. The station master's expression was very serious. Mr. Ting, Sir Professor, where are you now? Ding Meng said, we are on the way back. The station master said, very good. I need you and the professor to return. Ding Meng and the professor looked at each other. Could something have happened on the space station? It took 3 hours for the spaceship to exit the atmosphere and return to the space station. After receiving the notification, the two of them went straight to the command and control center of the space station's core bridge. This was the standard Starship Command Center. At this moment, the main control console was surrounded by the station master, the butler, the instructor, the butcher, and a thin old man. It looked like they were also core members. The leader of the Hidden Front was sitting on the sofa in the lounge. Number 2 was always standing behind him. The group did not look too good. It seemed like they had encountered a problem. Others might not know what was going on, but Ding Meng knew what was going on the moment he came in. The hundreds of screens in the hall, including the 5 central screens of the main control console, all dimmed. They lost the data and images that were supposed to be running. Now, they were all replaced by the same image. This image was a large black handprint on a white background. It looked very strange. After looking at it for a long time, it would make one's hair stand on end. Obviously, the black handprint faction had also found this place and had even hacked into the space station's artificial intelligence management system. This was also the usual method of the Fifth Lord. There was no place in this world that they could not hack. However, when he saw the professor, the station master's frown eased. A smile also appeared on the butler's face. Professor, you came at the right time. We need your help here. Chapter 808. When the professor saw the state of the command center, she knew that this place had been invaded by a rare hacker. She went up to help without saying a word. The professor did have some skills. Ding Meng noticed that she was operating the 4 control panels with both hands. Her fingers moved very quickly, similar to Xing's style. However, he did not know if she had Xing's skills. Unfortunately, the professor was not at Xing's level. She only operated for 5 minutes before a buzzing sound came from inside the command center. The red warning light flashed, and a screen automatically refreshed above the main control panel. It seemed that the professor did not solve the crisis. Instead, she created new problems. Everyone was shocked. They took a closer look and saw that the remote communication system had been forcefully connected. Countless rays shot down from above and quickly combined the images of people. The person who connected was a woman. She looked the same as before. She wore a simple and fashionable business suit and a pair of high heels. Her body showed off her impressive curves. She had light makeup on her face, and her long hair was tied up behind her head. She wore a pair of aviator sunglasses that covered half of her face. She gave off an arrogant and cold vibe. Even though Ding Meng was mentally prepared, he was still shocked. Julie. Julie looked around and said calmly, "Long time no see." Ding Meng. Ding Meng's face darkened. This matter was getting more and more complicated and not fun. The black handprint was also involved. How did you find this place? Ding Meng asked. Julie's lips curled into a strange smile. I have to thank you. If you didn't kidnap CEO Han from B Dynamics and deal with Ms. Guan from Songqing Spaceship, I wouldn't have been able to find this place for the rest of my life. As soon as she said this, everyone turned to look at Ding Meng. Their eyes were full of suspicion. Ding Meng did not respond. Julie turned around and said, Boss, long time no see. The hidden front boss stood up slowly. Hello, Miss Zhu. Julie smiled meaningfully. Boss, you're really something. Your nest has been operating under our noses for so many years, and we only discovered it recently. I'm really impressed. The leader of the hidden front said, Miss Zhu is now the young master's wife. What business do you have with my little station? Julie giggled. Boss, I'm here to bring you good news. The leader of the hidden front seemed to frown. Oh, Julie waved her hand and said, Please look over here. She was pointing at the big screen in the middle of the room. At this moment, the image on the screen changed. A huge Imperial fleet was sailing in space, led by the Golden Eagle mothership. There were many starships escorting it, but the scout ship at the front opened its side window and released countless spaceships into the interstellar dust. They were as dense as a swarm of locusts. The video was very short, but everyone's hands and feet were cold. This was because they were very familiar with this route. This was the outer barrier of the fertile chalk system's star vortex. Past this space barrier was the rainforest system. This meant that the Imperial military had already discovered the problem, and a large number of spaceships were rushing towards this place. Julie smiled. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? This happened a day ago. It's only a matter of time before they reach you. Everyone's expression changed, but the leader of the hidden front boss did not move. Thank you for telling me. Julie waved her hand and said, You're welcome, boss. My father misses you very much. He was afraid that you would fall into the hands of the military, so he asked me to inform you in advance. I wish you safety. See you another day. With that, the communication was cut off. The image on the screen gradually dimmed. At the same time, all the black handprints on the screen disappeared, and the space station's command system returned to normal. Silence. A deathly silence. Everyone's expression was different. The station chief was frowning. The butler was no longer smiling. The instructor was standing there in a daze. The butcher was glaring at Ding Meng. The old man was staring at the control panel in a daze, and the doctor was secretly looking at Ding Meng before looking at the hidden front boss. The situation was very grim, and the pursuers would be here soon. Ding Meng's attention was naturally on the boss. Although he could not see his face, Ding Meng could feel that the boss was very calm. He was not affected by Julie's disturbance at all. Old 9, the hidden front boss called out calmly. The butler answered, Boss, please instruct me. The hidden front boss asked, Where's Old 3 and Old 4? Up until now, these two were the core members that Ding Meng had not seen before. It seemed that the old man was the commanding officer of number 6. The butler said in a low voice, They're still in outer space. They won't be back anytime soon. The hidden front boss asked, Are they still in their original positions? The butler nodded. Yes, very good. The hidden front boss tone was very calm. He turned to the doctor. Old 7, you and Mr. Ting stayed on Planet 5 for a day. How do you feel? The doctor immediately turned on his wristwatch and showed the screen. Boss, this is our latest discovery, Lake Heart Island. There was a hint of joy in the hidden front boss tone. Mr. Ting did not disappoint me. Old 9, arrange a table for Mr. Ting in the hotel. Since everyone is here, why don't we celebrate? This is a good start. This order was really shocking. What kind of situation was this? Fire was going to burn your eyebrows or your ass, and you still had the mood to eat, drink, and play? Even Ding Meng felt that it was unbelievable. He could not figure out what the hidden front boss was up to. However, no one showed any strange expressions. Everyone seemed to be used to the boss' inscrutable behavior. No one could guess what he was up to. The butler bowed his head respectfully. Yes, boss. The hidden front boss prestige in the eyes of this group of people was really high. Ding Meng came to this conclusion again. When they returned to the hotel in the city, A large table of sumptuous dishes had already been set up in the dining room. The 9 of them sat around the table. This time, Ding Ming noticed something different from yesterday's banquet. At yesterday's banquet, the butler drank soft drinks while the hidden front boss drank plain water. However, at today's banquet, these 2 drinks were removed from the table. Instead, there were crystal wine bottles in front of everyone. The bottles were filled with high alcohol content. In the wine bottle in front of the hidden front boss, there seemed to be purple wine, a specialty of the Empire. This was a fruit wine with very low alcohol content. However, regardless of how low the alcohol content was, it was still wine. Was the hidden front boss going to drink wine? Just as Ding Ming was thinking this, the hidden front boss had already reached out his wine glass. "Here's to you," Ding Ming asked curiously why. The hidden front boss took a small sip and sighed in satisfaction. This plan has been brewing for many years. Today, it's finally time for it to bear fruit. You've helped everyone find their destination. You deserve my respect. He was obviously happy. It seemed that today was a big day for him. He even made an exception to drink wine. When he was happy, the atmosphere at the table was not as tense as before. However, there were still people who were full of questions. The butcher asked coldly, "We've been safe here for so many years. How could Black Handprint find us?" He was hinting that Julie was lured here by Ding Ming. However, the person who answered his question was not the boss, but the instructor. The instructor remained calm. "Mr. Ting is definitely not a spy." The butcher was obviously not convinced. "What?" The instructor replied calmly. "No one can make a person like Mr. Ting a spy. This word is an insult to Mr. Ting." This was not a very good answer, but the philosophy behind it could not be refuted. That's right. How could someone as powerful as Ding Ming allow someone else to be a spy? There probably wasn't such a person. Even boss couldn't do that. The station master could not help but say, "But the Black Handprint still found us." The instructor said, "The Black Handprint found us because they were nearby, so it was easy for them to find us." Everyone was shocked when they heard this, but then they understood. Even in the area of the large spiral of stars, there was interference when using quantum communication with the outside world. Furthermore, they were in the rainforest system inside the spiral of stars. This place was completely isolated from the outside world. The only explanation was that Julie was in either Planet 3 or Planet 4. They were at most 3 planets away from each other. The Black Handprint did have the ability to pick up the signals of the space station. Hearing this explanation, the housekeeper became anxious. Does this mean that the Fifth Floor's people are already close to Planet 5? This time, it was the Hidden Front's boss who answered her. "Old 9, you're wrong." The housekeeper was stunned. "Then where are Julie and the others now?" The Hidden Front boss was very calm. "If I'm not wrong, she had already reached Planet 5 when Mr. Ting and Old 7 arrived." Everyone looked at each other, except for the instructor who was calm. The Hidden Front's boss picked up his cup again. "The Empire's Songqing fleet didn't set off a day ago. She didn't tell us the truth. She's just trying to interfere with our judgment." The professor could not help but ask, "Didn't Songqing fleet set off a day ago?" The Hidden Front boss said, "No, the reconnaissance fleet should have already reached Planet 5. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. If this came from someone else's mouth, no one would believe it. But since it came from boss's mouth, no one doubted its authenticity. Even Ding Ming didn't doubt it. In fact, everyone had a question in their minds. The other 2 families had already arrived before them, and their target was most likely the island in the middle of the lake. What if they got there first? The Hidden Front's boss said calmly, "Let's eat and drink. Only when we're full and have a good rest will we have the energy to do business." Since he had set the tone, no one objected. They all began to eat and drink to their heart's content. No, Ding Ming was silent. The Hidden Front's boss was so calm. He was either confident or had a plan. There was no way he would waste such precious time on eating and drinking. As expected, the Hidden Front's boss seemed to have read his mind. "Mr. Ting, are you satisfied with my arrangements?" Ding Ming smiled. "Boss, your hospitality has left a deep impression on me." The Hidden Front's boss seemed to be smiling as well. "Mr. Ting, you don't have to worry. My principle is to rest when it's time to rest. You can even relax today and tomorrow. The room on the top floor is still reserved for you. What he meant was that Guan Lin could still accompany him for 2 more nights. Ding Meng really could not see through this person. Should he describe this hidden front's boss as open-minded? Or should he judge him as someone who could achieve great things? Ding Meng said, I don't have anything to do tomorrow. The hidden front's boss said, Old 5, Old 6, and Old 9 are the group that will start the operation tomorrow. Ding Meng said, so I'm the group that will start the day after tomorrow? The hidden front's boss stared at him and said meaningfully, so you have to enjoy today and tomorrow. Chapter 809. Why did people want to enjoy themselves? The purpose was to get rid of some negative emotions. This was especially true when a great battle was approaching. Many people would choose to enjoy themselves to reduce their stress and tension. In the mind of the leader of the hidden front, women were the best medicine for lowering stress. After a period of tenderness, the woman would be nourished and the man would be energized and motivated to do things. Unfortunately, Ding Meng did not think so. When he returned to the luxurious suite on the top floor of the hotel at night, Guan Lin was lying in the induction cabin and cultivating. However, when she sensed Ding Meng's return, Guan Lin immediately came out of the cabin with a look of surprise on her face. You're back. Ding Meng smiled bitterly and said, If you think that I came back in such a short time to take you away, you're wrong. Guan Lin said, Of course I know that's impossible. I'm just curious that you could come back. It looks like the butcher is no match for you, so you must have met him. Of course, she was referring to the leader of the hidden front. Ding Meng nodded and said, It's as you said. He's quite a scary person. Guan Lin stared at him and asked, Are you scared? Ding Meng shook his head and said, I'm just curious. What is he planning? Guan Lin asked, What happened? Ding Meng said, The black handprint and the military are about to arrive here. Guan Lin's expression changed. They were all smart people, and some things did not need to be explained too clearly to understand. No matter who it was, anyone who could come to the Hidden Front's Planet number 5 space station would not be a simple character. Guan Lin said, They must be here for the key to the land of entropy. Ding Meng said, The leader's plan for so many years is to get this key? Guan Lin said, Yes, I'm sure of it. Ding Meng said, I'm just afraid that it's not that simple. Guan Lin said in shock, Do you know something else? Ding Meng did not answer. It was as if he was frozen by magic, but his expression was terrible. Do you still want to add some bargaining chips for your survival? He actually opened his mouth and gave her such a hint. Guan Lin was stunned for a moment, but she quickly understood. Her face suddenly flushed red. She might not have thought about this kind of thing, but she really wanted to live. She simply said, As long as you are willing, I can do it at any time. I can do it now. All right. Ding Meng suddenly hugged her waist and sat on the spacious sofa. He quickly unbuttoned the front row of buttons on her shirt and hugged her up and down. Guan Lin was still a little confused, but when she suddenly realized that Ding Meng was pretending, she immediately became alert. Sure enough, a familiar voice came out of the loudspeaker. Is Mr. Ting resting? Ding Meng said, Come in. Forgive me for not being able to welcome you personally. The person who pushed the door open and entered was indeed the leader of the Hidden Front. He glanced at Guan Lin, who was sitting on Ding Meng's lap. Her face was flushed and her clothes were untidy. He did not seem surprised. Sorry to interrupt you. He was apologizing, but there was no apology in his tone at all. It was as if he treated Guan Lin as air. Guan Lin was a little embarrassed. She wanted to get down from Ding Meng's lap, but she was tightly held by Ding Meng's hands. When I was young, I was similar to Mr. Ting. I was always in the mood. The leader of the Hidden Front looked at Ding Meng with interest. He did not look elsewhere. He was looking at Ding Meng's hands. Ding Meng's rough hands were freely kneading Guan Lin's round jeans. He seemed to be very satisfied with this. When he had this kind of gaze, Ding Meng pushed Guan Lin away. Go to the bedroom and wait for me. Guan Lin ran next door shyly. It was not until the door was closed that the leader of the Hidden Front sat down next to Ding Meng. Ding Meng said, Boss, you came in the middle of the night. You must have something important to tell me. The leader of the hidden front smiled. It's really nice to get along with a friend like Mr. Ting. Ding Ming smiled. There were many people in the restaurant just now. Now that there's no one here, you can just say it. The leader of the hidden front said, Mr. Ting, I know that you're a martial artist from Divine Light. I also know that you're looking for the key. Ding Ming was not surprised by this. If the leader did not know this, then he did not deserve to be the leader of the hidden front. The leader of the hidden front said, but you won't be able to find the key. I can't find it either. The key is in the hands of my enemy. That person can't be here. Ding Ming did not ask who his enemy was. No matter who it was, they would be difficult to deal with. So what's your plan? The leader of the hidden front said meaningfully, have you ever thought that the island in the middle of the lake might not be the entrance to the land of entropy? In fact, Ding Ming had thought about this before. The great secret of the Mao Xing civilization was not something that could be easily accessed. How could he and the professor find it just by wandering around? How could there be such a coincidence in the world? The leader of the hidden front said, no one knows what the inside of the land of entropy is like. If there's one person who knows enough about this legendary place, it should be you. Ding Ming nodded. That makes sense. The leader of the hidden front continued. The island in the middle of the lake might be the entrance, or it might not be, but I'm more inclined to think that it isn't. Ding Ming was surprised. Oh, the leader of the hidden front said, the professor's research over the years has shown that Planet 5 is gradually being contaminated by a new type of mana. Ding Ming asked, you want this mana? The leader of the hidden front said, I need this energy. It's not that I really need it, but that my regenerated warriors need it. Ding Ming said, but that kind of energy is not really beneficial to origin ability users. The leader of the hidden front said, my regenerated warriors are not real origin ability users either. This was a very clever answer. Even Ding Ming could not refute it. Then what do you really want? The leader of the hidden front said word by word, the wealth that the Heavenly Dragon Division has accumulated over the years. Ding Ming looked at him calmly. But that wealth has been controlled by the Black Handprint since a few years ago. The leader of the hidden front said, but since the Fifth Lord dared to send his daughter here, I can't miss this opportunity. It was only at this moment that Ding Ming realized how sinister this person was. Julie was able to find this place not because the Black Handprint's hackers were powerful, but because the leader of the hidden front deliberately exposed the location of the space station. Once this information was released, it would depend on how the Fifth Lord would deal with it. It was unlikely that the Fifth Lord would casually send a lackey. Since Julie was personally involved, she would bring a large number of elite forces with her. The leader of the hidden front wanted to use this opportunity to capture Julie and force the Fifth Lord to exchange the wealth of the Heavenly Dragon Division for her. It seemed that there were still secrets hidden in the wealth of the Heavenly Dragon Division that Ding Ming did not know about. Ding Ming gradually understood the general idea of the leader of the hidden front. He did not care about the Black Handprint and the military getting ahead of him. The shadow leopards and all kinds of complicated spirits on Planet 5 were enough to make them suffer. To put it bluntly, without the company of people from the Devourer world and those who did not cultivate high-level psychic powers, they would all die. The leader of the hidden front only needed to sit back and enjoy the fruits of his labor. Ding Ming suddenly said, then what do you need me to do? The leader of the hidden front said, Julie is personally involved, so she must have a large number of experts under her command. I need you to help me deal with these experts. Ding Ming could not help but think of the widow. The Black Handprint's strength is indeed extraordinary. The leader of the hidden front stared at him. This is not difficult for Mr. Ting. Besides, I know that the Black Handprint has a deep grudge against you. Ding Ming did not continue the topic. What can I get out of this? The leader of the hidden front said, after this is done, I will tell you who has the key. If possible, I will help you find key. The key will naturally belong to you. Also, you can take Miss Guan with you. Ding Ming smiled. Are you willing to do that? The leader of the hidden front seemed to be smiling as well. As long as it is something that Mr. Ting likes, I am willing to give it to you. In his eyes, Guan Lin was not a person. She was an object, an item, a bargaining chip that could be used in a trade. Ding Meng also smiled, but it was a strange smile. These conditions are not bad, but I have one last request. The leader of the Hidden Front said, "Please speak." Ding Meng said word by word. "If you want me to help you, you have to at least let me know who you are." Before the leader could finish his sentence, Ding Meng clawed at his face like lightning. This claw did not use any origin energy. Because it's such a close distance, origin energy was not the key to victory. Speed and technique were. With a rip, the sofa broke into two. Ding Meng was sitting on one half, but the other half was already at the door. The leader of the Hidden Front slid away with the sofa like a fish. When he raised his head again, his mask had indeed been torn off by Ding Meng. Ding Meng was confident that not many people could avoid this claw. However, Ding Meng still could not see his true face. This was because he did not have a face. His face was flat. There were no eyes, no nose, and no lips. This was simply a strange, flat face. Ding Meng could tell that the leader of the Hidden Front seemed to be equipped with a secret treasure like the Thousand Shadow Foil. More importantly, he also had applied telekinesis. There was no way Ding Meng could see his true face. "I'm not good looking." The leader of the Hidden Front stood up. His tone was somewhat cold. "And you were able to tear off my mask. This is enough to prove that you can deal with many experts with the black handprint." Ding Meng sighed. "It seems that I have no choice but to agree to this condition of yours." The leader of the Hidden Front's tone softened. "My conditions are very good for you. Besides, if you succeed, it will be good for all of us." "And if it doesn't work?" Ding Meng asked. The leader of the Hidden Front said, "If we fail, the space station will become a stronghold for the Black Handprint, and Planet 5 will be controlled by the military. I don't know if the Fifth Lord will be fine, but I will definitely be finished. And you won't have an easy time either." Ding Meng nodded. "I finally understand why you said that I would become your friend." The leader of the Hidden Front said, "I'm not talking nonsense." Ding Meng asked, "Are you confident that you can help me find the key?" The leader of the Hidden Front said, "I'm at least twice as confident as the Fifth Lord and the military." Ding Meng said, "I believe in you." The leader of the Hidden Front said, "I've been waiting for you to say that. At the same time, I also want to tell you that I have full confidence in you." Chapter 8:10. The door quickly closed, and the leader of the Hidden Front disappeared into the darkness. Ding Meng stood in front of the crystal glass window, quietly watching the night sky outside. The telekinesis blind spot between him and the leader of the Hidden Front was gradually increasing. This proved that the other party had really left this time and was not staying in the hotel area. The bedroom door opened, and Guanlin walked out. She quietly stood behind Ding Meng. "Did you really agree to his terms?" Ding Meng nodded. "Yes," Guanlin said in surprise. "You really believe him?" Ding Meng said, "Agreeing is one thing. Believing is another." Guanlin said, "Oh." Ding Meng said, "I don't believe a single word he said." Guanlin was stunned again. "Why?" Ding Meng smiled. "It's very simple. Because you heard everything we talked about." There was a telekinesis blind spot between him and the leader of the Hidden Front, so he could not create a telekinesis force field. Therefore, he could not shield the bedroom. Moreover, Guanlin was not weak. It was normal for her to be able to sense it at such a close distance. "He let me hear this on purpose, right?" Guanlin was obviously very smart. Ding Meng said, "You guessed right this time. He did it on purpose." "Why?" Ding Meng said, "He stayed in the hotel all this time. There was no other reason than to confirm something. He wanted to see if I was really relaxing with you." As soon as he said this, Guanlin's face was dyed with a layer of red clouds. Ding Meng said, "He did it for a reason." Guanlin could not help but ask, "What's the reason?" Ding Meng stared at the night sky. "Do you remember what he said when he entered the room?" Of course, Guanlin remembered. "When I was young, I was about the same as Mr. Ting. I was very interested." The vast majority of men were filled with primitive interest in women when they were young, especially Guanlin, who had both status and strength. Almost any man wanted to conquer her and wanted to see her sweet and happy appearance under their own body. "But what does that have to do with me?" Guanlin didn't feel embarrassed, because this wasn't a sarcastic remark, but a covert acknowledgement of her charm. It's related, Ding Ming said solemnly, because I'm young, and young men are inevitably fascinated by beautiful women. When he heard that I would only be allowed to take action the day after tomorrow, then according to his logic, I would have done as much as I could with you in the next 2 days. I wouldn't be exhausted, but at least I would be allowed to stay in the space station. However, he was still worried, so he wanted to come up and take a look in person. Guanlin instantly understood why Ding Ming had hugged her and rocked her on the sofa. It was all an act for the boss to see, to mislead the boss into thinking that Ding Ming was very interested in her. And the moment he came up, Ding Ming immediately noticed it. Guanlin said, "Why does he want you to stay in the space station for the next 2 days?" Ding Ming immediately became expressionless. If I'm not wrong, there must be a strong enemy who will land on the space station in the next 2 days. He wants me to help him fend them off, or rather, he wants me to help him get rid of the strong enemy. Guanlin was puzzled. He's so powerful, yet he still needs your help? No. Ding Ming shook his head. You're underestimating him. He's powerful enough, or rather, there's no one he can't handle. You want me to stay here to help him fend off the enemy so that he can buy time. That way, he won't have anything to worry about and can go to Planet 5 to complete his plan. Guanlin was surprised. Since you can guess his intentions, why are you still staying? Ding Ming's eyes flashed. Now that things have come to this, I'm also curious to see what he's up to. How powerful is this strong enemy? In fact, ever since he arrived at the space station, the people here had already refreshed his understanding of his opponents. Among the enemies he had encountered in the past, other than Fong Lin and the widow who had caused him quite a bit of trouble, the others were not qualified to be his enemies. However, if the boss of the Hidden Front saw someone as an enemy, then he had to pay attention. No matter who it was, that person was definitely not weak. Furthermore, everything was still unclear. If he wanted to find out the truth, he had to cooperate with the Hidden Front's plan. Guanlin smiled bitterly. In front of big shots like Ding Ming and the boss, she suddenly felt that she was like a child. Whether it was scheming or scheming, she was no match for them. The shrewdness, calmness, insidiousness, intelligence, judgment, premonition, and brains of these big shots were not something a person like her could compare to. Most of the warriors in the Norse Empire were training hard. Even if they had the same combat strength as Ding Ming and the others, what about their intelligence? Their talent? Their insight? Could they keep up with these things? You don't look like a young man in his 30s at all. Guanlin sighed. You're even more shrewd than those century-old monsters. Ding Ming smiled. If I wasn't careful, I wouldn't be alive now. Guanlin stared at him. You've overturned a lot of my past views. My only wish is to leave this place, but I also know that it's not now. Right now, in this galaxy, 3 major forces were about to collide. The military, the Hidden Front, and a Black Hand would fight on planet number 5. This was likely to be a bloodbath of an unprecedented scale. In the past, Guanlin would probably have jumped up in excitement. In this kind of place where experts and gods gathered, there would definitely be a storm and a scene of famous people. However, she now felt that planet number 5 was a huge whirlpool. Once someone like her was sucked into it, she would definitely be crushed into powder. She just wanted to escape. She just wanted to go back to the Empire and return to her mother's side. She even recalled her happy childhood, where her mother personally made breakfast for her every morning. This long night, Ding Ming did not touch her. He just sat quietly on the bed with his legs crossed and his eyes closed. Guanlin did not disturb him either. She curled up on the broken sofa alone for the whole night. When the sky was slightly brighter, Ding Ming's telekinetic vision had already captured the street 9 kilometers away. On the street, the station master looked nervous as he hurried toward the bridge. Ding Ming sighed slightly. It seemed that the strong enemy came faster than he thought. At the same time, he could not help but admire the power of the Hidden Front's boss. He actually calculated this point. However, when he retracted his telekinetic power and exited the space of consciousness, he smelled a tempting fragrance. It was the smell of fried eggs. When he opened his eyes, he found that Guan Lin had already prepared breakfast on the long table in the dining room. Golden fried eggs, red roasted sausages, sandwiches, milk, and a few boxes of steam buns. Although the breakfast was simple, it was very exquisite. It was very appetizing. Guan Lin was wearing a chef's skirt. She was cooking a small pot of 8 treasure porridge. If you're interested, why don't you try it? Ding Ming was interested in any form of eating, but this time he did not devour everything. Instead, he slowly sat down at the table, picked up a knife and fork, and tasted it bit by bit. He ate very slowly and carefully, as if he was tasting the most delicious thing in the world. The way he ate naturally filled Guan Lin with curiosity. My cooking is not as good as my mother's, but looking at you, I feel very confident in myself. Ding Ming smiled. This is the first time someone has personally made breakfast for me. Guan Lin also smiled. I didn't make it all for you. Before I became an origin ability user, my mother would make breakfast like this for me every morning. I used to think it wasn't delicious, but now that I've made one, I suddenly feel that it's better than I imagined. Of course, she did not understand the significance of this breakfast for Ding Ming. More than 20 years ago, it was simply a dream for Ding Ming to eat breakfast like this. At that time, he and Ding Ming's breakfast was often a small handful of noodles, but more often than not, they were hungry. They were so hungry that they even had to gnaw on tree bark and mud. Therefore, whenever he got food, he would eat it carefully, afraid that he would swallow it in one gulp. Only a person who had truly experienced hunger could maintain such a respectful and even devout attitude towards food that was not easy to come by. However, looking at Ding Ming chewing in small bites, Guan Lin could not help but ask, "Are you very nervous?" Ding Ming was a little surprised. "You can tell." Guan Lin said, "When a man's movements are especially slow, it means that he's under a lot of psychological pressure." Ding Ming was silent, but this time he did not deny it. "I also have times when I'm nervous." Guan Lin said, "Is it because of the enemy that's coming?" "Not really." Ding Ming did not admit it. At this moment, he had a familiar feeling, as if he had seen some kind of terrible future. This feeling had appeared in the Black Gold Base, the Rainbow Temple, the Greenwood Temple, and Rainforest Planet 1, but now it had appeared again. Ding Ming suddenly said, "Thank you for this breakfast." Guan Lin was a little amused. "Why are you suddenly so polite?" Ding Ming stuffed the last soup dumpling into his mouth and then stood up. "If I can come back this time, I'll definitely take you away from here." Ding Ming calmed down. Guan Lin suddenly felt a little moved. She lowered her head and whispered, "Thank you." Ding Ming said, "Just stay here. I'll definitely come back." "Okay." Guan Lin was suddenly filled with anticipation. This did not mean that Ding Ming was moved by her, or that she had fallen in love with Ding Ming. In this kind of place, everyone was in danger and the unknown were everywhere. However, this simple breakfast had closed the distance between her and Ding Ming. This was because she knew that Ding Ming already saw her as a friend. Ding Ming and Boss were two completely opposite types. Boss seemed to know how to use people well, but he was actually cold and heartless. Ding Ming appeared fierce, but he was actually very emotional. She was more inclined to trust people like Ding Ming. Ding Ming's actions and words were indeed trustworthy. After leaving the hotel, Ding Ming did not go to the command center. Instead, he spread out his telekinesis. Right now, there was only the station master on the space station. The real-time image on the radar showed that a military Songqing probe ship with the Empire's dagger logo was slowly entering the port. The station master did not stop them. He could not stop them even if he wanted to. The space station itself did not have any countermeasures, let alone a private space station in the hidden front. Songqing spacecraft were not usually equipped with powerful weapon systems, so instead of closing the port, he might as well let them in. The visitors were definitely from the Empire's military. Therefore, Ding Ming went straight to the landing apron to wait. He did not expect the station master to have the same thoughts as him, and was also waiting at the landing apron. No matter who it was, the landing apron was the first hurdle. If you stopped them here, it would be the same as stopping them in outer space. Seeing Ding Ming standing in the middle of the plaza, The station master was undoubtedly relieved. Mr. Ting. Ding Ming nodded slightly. The station master asked tentatively, "Did boss send you here?" Ding Ming said, "Yes." The station master looked like he was relieved. With Ding Ming guarding this place, he was undoubtedly relieved. Chapter 811. Songqing's spaceship quickly floated in through the connecting airway and landed steadily on the square. The connecting cabin opened and the escalator was lowered. A bald-headed man in an Empire military uniform slowly walked down. As he walked, he twisted his neck as if he was stretching his joints. He was indeed burly and strong, but he also looked fierce. From the way he twisted his neck, one could tell that he was an arrogant person. He glanced at Ding Ming and the station master in the distance. His disdainful gaze made it seem as if he did not take them seriously. He then turned to the ship and shouted, "Girl, come down. It's fine here. I'll bring you in to have some fun." Hearing this, the station master almost vomited blood. He had thought that some big shot had come, but it looked like a loafer. Did he bring his lover to go shopping? What did he think this place was? A bar? A nightclub? Soon, a girl's figure appeared on the escalator. This young girl was a little tall, and she was wearing a colorful ribbon outfit. Her hair was dyed red, and there was a thick layer of makeup on her face. She looked like a shamate. The bald head smiled when he saw the girl. His tone became gentle. "Be careful. Don't fall." He carefully helped the girl down. Although the station master was a little disdainful, he knew that the visitor was not friendly. He took a deep breath and took the initiative to greet him. "Hello. May I know who this distinguished guest is from the military?" Before he could finish, he was rudely interrupted by the bald head. "Shut up." The station master was stunned. The bald head glared and said angrily, "Who do you think you are? I haven't even asked you. How dare you ask me? Get lost." The station master was probably stunned by his scolding. He did not answer for a moment. The bald head slowly walked towards the entrance of the elevator with the girl in his arms. The station master could not help but say, "Stop." The bald head turned and said, "What are you doing? Are you having epilepsy?" The station master said coldly, "If you don't identify yourself and tell me why you are here, I can't let you go." "Let you go?" The bald head was so angry that he laughed. "Who do you think you are? Do I need you to let me go? Trash." Even though the station master had good self-restraint, he was still angered by the other party. Usually, the people he dealt with were all people of high quality. When had he ever seen such a vulgar and arrogant loafer? The station master did not waste any more time. Suddenly, he turned into an afterimage and dashed toward the enemy's flank. He had actually used the same karate chop as Ding Ming. Dang! His karate chop landed on the bald head's raised forearm. The bald head stood still, but the station master was pushed back. "How dare you block my way when you're only at this level? What a piece of trash." The bald head sneered disdainfully. Then, he turned around and smiled at the girl. "Hee, what do you think?" The girl's eyes were filled with admiration. "Brother Lu, you're so amazing. You can do whatever you want no matter where you go." Brother Lu couldn't help but smile. "Of course." The station master suddenly calmed down. He thought that he had met a fool, but he didn't expect the other party to be a fierce person. Actually, the station master wasn't weak. From Ding Ming's perception, the station master's origin ability index was at least 7 billion. He was between intermediate and advanced battle saints. Moreover, he walked the path of an assassin. However, that Brother Lu was able to force him back with just one move. He really couldn't be underestimated. At this time, Brother Lu stood in front of the girl and protected her. His expression finally became serious. "Girl, go back to the spaceship." The girl blinked her eyes and obediently walked back. The station master's aura suddenly rose. He slowly raised his karate chop. With a zhung sound, a straight and fine blade popped out from his wrist. It looked like a sharp and shiny steel needle, but the light in his eyes was even brighter. Chua! This time, the station master didn't summon an afterimage. Instead, he summoned 6 identical doppelgangers. The speed of the doppelgangers was indescribable. They were like 6 pieces of paper surrounding Brother Lu and randomly cutting him. That Brother Lu wasn't someone easy to deal with. He actually stood in place and waved his palms rapidly. This kind of standing stance was actually able to withstand the attacks calmly and without a single flaw. Ding Ming could see that Brother Lu was a pure, tough-type origin ability user. His path was similar to the Butcher's, and his entire body was as hard as iron. The Station Master's quick attacks went through dozens of rounds in the blink of an eye. However, the steel needle didn't even touch the corner of his opponent's clothes. Suddenly, the 6 doppelgangers gathered from all directions and merged into one. The Station Master's entire body floated forward and directly slapped Brother Lu. This time, his speed could be described as the speed of a tortoise. However, Brother Lu's expression was very serious. Only people at their level knew that sometimes the slower the path, the more terrifying it was. Sure enough, the Station Master's mirror image dimmed when it floated in front of Brother Lu. The real body appeared behind Brother Lu. Brother Lu was very experienced. He didn't even turn around. Instead, he slapped backward with his palm. He wanted to cut the Station Master away before the steel needle could reach him. Ooh, the palm quickly cut through the air. Because the speed was so fast, it seemed to have created a sonic boom. However, the next moment, Brother Lu's heart sank. The Station Master behind him wasn't the real body. It was also a mirror image. The real body was still in front of him. This wasn't a mistake in his judgment. This mirror image was clearly some kind of secret technique. It was impossible to distinguish between the real and the fake. Gee, the steel needle finally pierced into his flesh. The Station Master's movements were very elegant. This was a posture of a reclining Buddha. He stood with one foot on the ground and his body leaned back. He raised his palm and clasped Brother Lu's palm. The steel needle drilled through his palm and penetrated his entire arm. Brother Lu suffered a heavy blow. His entire body seemed to have been paralyzed. He froze on the spot. Then, the Station Master raised his other foot and kicked backward. It accurately landed on Brother Lu's head. Suddenly, a steel needle popped out of the tip of his boot and directly pierced Brother Lu's brain. Brother Lu's body swayed and then fell to the ground. His huge body fell to the ground, and he couldn't get up anymore. The Station Master slowly straightened his body and stood up. He looked at the body on the ground and said disdainfully, "This isn't a place where you can come and go as you please." Ding Ming, who was not far away, suddenly sighed. "It's too late." The Station Master didn't hear clearly for a moment. He didn't know if Ding Ming said it was too late or it was over. However, Ding Ming's sigh immediately alerted him. Logically speaking, the girl should be very scared when her boyfriend fell. However, the girl opposite him looked at him with a smile. "How dare you kill an important member of the military?" The Station Master finally felt that something was wrong. He narrowed his eyes. "Little girl, what are you talking about?" The girl stopped smiling and revealed a cold expression. "Dai Jinsheng, do you know how pitiful you are?" Hearing this, the Station Master showed a terrified expression. He even took a few steps back in fear. Dai Jinsheng was obviously his real name. This was his biggest secret. Who would have thought that it would be called out so casually by a weak girl? "Who are you?" The Station Master stared at the girl coldly. The girl sighed. "Dai Jinsheng, you were originally a very outstanding border garrison officer of our empire. Although you didn't make any military contributions, you have always been cautious and conscientious. You were stationed at the border defense line leading to the fertile chalk system. You stayed there for over 100 years. Why did you suddenly become a lackey of the Hidden Front?" Since she could say all this, there was no need for the Station Master to hide it. He gritted his teeth and said, "I didn't make any military contributions? What a joke. I was the first batch of soldiers to enter the fertile chalk system to open up new territory. I was also the first person to discover the rainforest. That dog of a man, Hu Ming, stole my credit and took my wife. He sent me to the border defense line and made it impossible for me to return home for 100 years. Is this how the military treats me?" The girl was stunned. Ding Ming was also stunned. There was actually such a hidden story behind all of this. The girl said seriously, But this is not a reason for you to defect to the hidden front. The station master's eyes were filled with hatred. He shouted, I reported this to the commander of the military court. Not only did the commander not investigate that dog of a man, he even advised me to keep the peace. I begged everywhere, but there was no one to turn to. My wife was even forced to change her marriage and had a daughter with that dog of a man. That bastard is already 40 years old. If it were you, would you be able to take this lying down? The girl was silent. I will give you a chance now. Give up your resistance and come back to the Empire with me. Cooperate with the Empire's investigation. The military will give you justice. Ha ha ha. The station master raised his head and laughed. His laughter sounded like he was crying. Why are you still spouting the same bullshit? Do you think I don't know that Ming is now the commander of the fleet and a major general? Do you think the Empire will punish a major general stationed on the front lines? The girl took a deep breath. Trust me, as long as the evidence is conclusive, the military court will not show mercy to any criminal. The station master laughed until tears came out of his eyes. Ha ha! How many times have I trusted you? How many times have I begged you? You always say the same thing. My poor wife has been kept in the dark for 100 years. My biggest wish is to return to Norris and tell her the truth, but the military maliciously threw me into the fertile chalk system. If it weren't for the boss saving me in time, I would have been torn apart by those frogs. How dare you say something like this now? The girl's face darkened. You mean to say that you'll be stubborn and stubborn to the end? So what if I am? The station master was furious. The girl sighed. Forget it. Ding Meng suddenly said, Be careful. For Ding Meng to say those two words, he had done all he could for the station master. Ding Meng did not have a good impression of the members of Hidden Peak, but the station master had always treated him with a smile. As the saying goes, one does not hit a smiling person. Moreover, Ding Meng sympathized with the man's situation, so he spoke up. However, it was too late. Brother Liu, who had been lying dead on the ground, suddenly jumped up and slapped the station master in the chest. The station master was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Brother Liu then followed up with a Thomas's roundhouse kick. The station master's back hit a steel plate, and a stream of white blood flowed out of his mouth. He might not have understood what was going on, but Ding Meng's eyes were sharp. Brother Liu's first strike had pushed the steel needle that had been nailed into the station master's arm back into his heart. At the same time, another steel needle shot out from the top of the station master's head. After being kicked out, it changed direction and pierced through his forehead, straight into his brain, and finally nailed him to the steel plate. It turned out that Brother Liu had been pretending to be dead all this time. His real strength was that of a master of both body hardening and biochemistry. The station master stopped breathing on the spot. There was no sign of life left in his body. His body was sitting on the ground, and his eyes were wide open. There was no doubt or fear in his eyes, only a deep sadness. He had lived for so many years, hoping to return to the Empire through the hidden front. But now his hope had died because he would never be able to go back. In the end, he had died at the hands of the military. This was his destiny, and he could not escape it. Ding Meng slowly walked to the corner of the wall and reached out to touch the station master's face. Rest in peace. The station master's eyes finally closed completely. Chapter 8:12. Ding Meng stood up again. His feelings were very complicated, so he said calmly, Defecting to the hidden front is wrong, but that is not a reason for you to kill him. The girl ignored him, and Brother Liu ignored him as well. Ding Meng was treated like air. Ding Meng had no choice but to raise his wristwatch and produce a screen with a beep. Brother Liu twisted his neck and laughed contemptuously. The Special Operations Department. What kind of rotten department is that? The girl said, General Luo's investigation order. It looks like you're also part of the military. Ding Meng did not have any other intentions by flashing the screen. He just wanted to remind these two that they were being too overbearing. However, Brother Liu laughed even more disdainfully. What? Do you think you can throw your weight around just because you're part of General Luo's team? Let me tell you, It would have been better if you didn't show this dog tag. Now that you've shown it, you have to listen to my orders obediently. Ding Ming's face darkened. I'll ask you one question, Brother Lu said impatiently. If you have something to say, just say it. Ding Ming said, this Dai Jinsheng, does he deserve to die? Brother Lu laughed. So what if he deserves to die? So what if he doesn't deserve to die? Are you going to uphold justice for him? Ding Ming said, what you mean is that those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will die. As for whether this Dai Jinsheng was wronged or not, that's not important, right? Brother Lu said, that's all bullshit. What right do you have to tell me what to do? Do you know who I am? Get out of my way. He was still arrogant. The girl did not say anything, so it looked like she had acquiesced. Very good. Ding Ming immediately became expressionless. I only have one last thing to say. You don't stand a chance in front of me. Brother Lu looked at him with interest. Hey, you're F*King more arrogant than I am. Okay, I'll test your weight, you brat. He seemed to be standing still, but in the next moment, his whole body flashed out a red-crowned crane spreading its wings movement. Looking at the slightly raised calf, it was clear that this person's real strength was his leg technique. Sure enough, Brother Lu miraculously appeared right in front of Ding Ming and kicked him fiercely. His momentum, speed, and strength were many times stronger than before. If the station master could see it, he would know that he deserved to die in the hands of this person. However, Ding Ming was not the station master. Ding Ming moved later, but arrived first. He swept his leg from top to bottom. With a thud sound, Brother Lu's right knee hit the steel plate, and all the momentum he had gathered disappeared without a trace. Ding Ming's kick landed on his neck, and he couldn't help but fall to his knees. Brother Lu was furious. He gritted his teeth and used his shoulder to block Ding Ming's kick. He slowly stood up. It was clear that his anger was far greater than his surprise. Ding Ming pulled back his leg, turned around, and swept his other leg down in a scissor kick. This was Chu Xiaoqing's 9 forms of the Sparrow Strike. It was indeed just for show, but it was enough to deal with Brother Lu. With another thud sound, Brother Lu fell to one knee again. He couldn't believe what had happened in front of him. A brat who was still wet behind the ears could actually make him kneel twice in a row. This was not a matter of strength, but a matter of dignity. The bigger problem was that he couldn't get up. The origin in his body seemed to have been completely suppressed. His origin energy was in a mess, and it was running wild in his internal organs. This caused him to see stars. Where's your arrogance from before? Take it out. Ding Ming looked down at him from above. Brother Lu was furious. He gritted his teeth and said, I misjudged you. I didn't expect you to be an expert. Ding Ming suddenly kneed Brother Lu, and Brother Lu flew into the air with a trail of blood. He flew for 50 or 60 meters before crashing into the airship's escalator. The escalator immediately melted into molten steel. Brother Lu was actually quite strong. If it had been anyone else, they would have been turned into ash and midair. However, he was still fine, which showed that his strength was extraordinary. Although he didn't die, all his front teeth fell out at Ding Ming's feet. With a paw sound, Ding Ming's combat boots stepped on a pile of teeth. They were probably ground to dust. Ding Ming laughed. Your mouth is too smelly. It's better if you don't have any teeth. With Brother Lu's temper, there was no way he could tolerate such humiliation. He roared angrily, stood up, and sent out a series of palm strikes across the air. Ding, ding, ding. Several gigantic walls of holy splendor appeared on the tarmac. Not only were these walls of holy splendor tempered in red, yellow, and blue, each of them was filled with a forest of swords and sabers. They looked sinister, but they were also very imposing. This was truly much stronger than the average battle saint. Ding Ming looked at him coldly and nodded. If you want to die, then I'll grant you your wish. After saying this, he waved a single palm across the air. An even more vigorous and powerful torrent of origin energy poured out. From afar, it looked like the purplish-blue crystal flames that spewed out when the starship's engine was activated. Regardless of whether it was a forest of swords and sabers or a myriad of phenomena, in front of this absolute strength, They were all like rotten bamboo and rotten rocks in the face of a tsunami. What should be broken was broken, and what should be shattered was shattered. They were all reduced to ashes in an instant. Not only did the torrent destroy the walls of holy splendor, it also swept Brother Lu into it. The tarmac was completely covered by the torrent. After about half a minute, the torrent gradually dimmed. The outer steel plate of the Songqing spaceship had melted, revealing the complicated tubes and cabins inside. Half of the Songqing spaceship had been destroyed. Anyway, it was impossible to drive it to planet number 5. Its exterior could not withstand the friction of the atmosphere. Below the spaceship, Brother Lu's body was in pieces, as if he had been cut by countless blades. He lay on the ground, and his breathing was quite weak. Ding Meng waved one hand, and Brother Lu flew into the air. He grabbed Brother Lu by the throat. You want to kill him, and you think you have the right to do so. If I want to kill you, I also think you deserve to die. Ding Meng sneered. Stop. The girl in the distance frowned. Do you know who he is? Ding Meng said calmly. Anyone is the same. The girl said coldly. He is from the Imperial Military Secret Service. His rank is higher than yours. If you really want to make a move, you have to think twice. There are some consequences that you can't bear. Ding Meng actually knew about this department. Its full name was the Special Service Department, and it was dedicated to serving the upper echelons of the Empire. It was similar to bodyguards, with great authority and high status. The average person could not afford to offend it. However, the girl's answer was a crisp crack. Ding Meng had directly crushed Brother Lu's jaw. Why didn't you say that when I showed the logo just now? Ding Meng asked calmly. The girl's expression turned ugly. If you touch him, you will be making an enemy of the entire Norse Empire. There was another crack, and Brother Lu's shoulder blade was shattered. He could not even cry out in pain. His opponent was too strong. The energy released had completely locked down his entire body, including his vocal tract, breathing, and retinal nerves. Go on, Ding Meng said expressionlessly. I'm listening. The girl did not dare to continue, because she had finally met the legendary stubborn and unreasonable ruthless person. Of course, she had forgotten that she belonged to this kind of person. Ding Meng held Brother Lu. Let me ask you again. Does Dai Jinsheng deserve to die? Brother Lu coughed violently. He felt that he could finally speak. You can kill me if you dare. Cough, cough. Ding Meng looked at him. You just have to answer me. If he deserves to die, then you deserve to die too. If he doesn't deserve to die, then maybe I can spare your worthless life. He doesn't deserve to die. Brother Lu was not really admitting defeat. He wanted to protect himself first. He could tell that the young man in front of him was the kind of person who liked to take things seriously. Ding Meng nodded. Very well. If you don't think he deserves to die, then why do you still want to kill him? Brother Lu's heart suddenly sank. He could smell the danger that was about to befall him. Ding Meng said word by word, so you deserve to die too. This question was a dead end. No matter how you answered, you had to die. Brother Lu was instantly enraged. He opened his mouth and cursed. F***ck your mother. Ding Meng would not give him the chance to curse. He raised his hand and brought the knife down. All the voices were cut off. Ding Meng's knife hand landed on Brother Lu's bald head. The head was like a watermelon, but now the watermelon was incomplete. More than half of it had caved in. When it came to ruthlessness, Ding Meng was merciless. Brother Lu's skull had been shattered, and his brain had been damaged. When Ding Meng released his grip, Brother Lu's eyes rolled back, and he fell to the ground. After receiving such a heavy blow, even if he survived, he would be a cripple. Let's see if there are any consequences that I can't bear. Ding Meng turned around and looked at the girl. The girl was a little surprised. This kid was really daring. Most importantly, an expert like Brother Lu did not stand a chance in front of him. The girl's face darkened. You don't even know how much trouble you've caused. Ding Meng said sternly, don't play tricks with me. Stop acting. Show me your true face. Otherwise, you'll end up like him. The girl finally showed a hint of shock. She could not figure out how Ding Meng could see through her. With a bang, the girl's body exploded into a cloud of blue smoke. These wisps of smoke constantly condensed in the air. This was a miraculous skill like the phantom fantasy. After a while, the girl's true body was revealed. Strictly speaking, she was not a young woman. On the contrary, she looked a little old. However, she took good care of herself. Her body was still tall and attractive. She wore a white corset dress with an expensive black belt around her waist. This gave her a noble and elegant feeling. Her face was slightly square, and her facial features were very impressive. Her hair was tied up high, and her brows were filled with the dignity of a superior. At the same time, she exuded the unique charm of a mature woman. She was the noble, cold, and mysterious type. This kind of mature charm was hard for the majority of men to resist, especially that pure white face that seemed to be suffused with light. Presumably, this person must have been a beauty that could topple all living things when she was young. The girl said coldly, "Do you know who I am? It doesn't matter who you are." Ding Meng still said the same thing. There was no difference between men and women. There were only two kinds of people standing opposite him. One was already dead, and the other was about to die. Chapter 8:13. In the face of Ding Meng's arrogance, the woman did not seem to have any impulse to argue. That was how strong people were. Words were powerless. Their fists were the only thing that could be heard. The atmosphere on the tarmac was somber. This was a sign that a storm was coming, and a great battle was about to begin. Both of them were very clear that the other party was not an ordinary person. She must have some amazing skills. However, Ding Meng still underestimated this woman. At this moment, the woman suddenly put away her cold expression. Her face gradually softened, and her pair of beautiful eyes looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. This person's face was even more vivid than Guanlin's. Just now, her cold attitude made you feel like she was a fake person. At this moment, her beautiful eyes rolled, and her gaze moved. It was exactly the kind of feeling one would get when one's heart palpitated. It was just like when a beautiful woman inadvertently stared at you in a daze at some important social occasion. If you made eye contact with her, you would be unable to control yourself and would have many beautiful fantasies. At this moment, a man's guard was almost zero. Ding Meng also realized that he was a little distracted. He spread out his telekinesis vision and found that the other party did not use any martial arts or psychic abilities. This woman was so strange. Ding Meng took a deep breath and activated the origin of the first 3 diamond forms. As soon as she sensed that Ding Meng's aura was increasing wildly, the woman's expression changed. This move of hers was a woman's most primitive capital, her most moving charm. It was precisely because there was no psychic ability or martial arts mixed into it that the purest and most natural thing could move the hearts of countless men. Logically speaking, a young boy like Ding Meng would not be able to resist it at all. However, the fact that the other party's energy was increasing at an insane rate proved that he was an extremely determined origin ability user. When did our empire have such a young genius? Why didn't I know about it? The woman was still puzzled. Ding Meng's aura was becoming more and more vigorous, and it was becoming more and more powerful. She didn't plan to wait any longer. She had to make the first move. She casually waved her hand, and an extremely fine thread flew out of her hand. Halfway through the flight, the string turned into a big net with a swoosh sound. Moreover, this was not a net in the ordinary sense. Nets were usually planar, but this net was 3-dimensional. There were many triangular and polygonal net-like spaces inside. They complemented each other and complemented each other. Not only were they dense and neat, but they were also integrated. This wasn't a net at all, but a net. There was no way for him to dodge an attack of this level. Ding Meng suddenly thought of Lanbei. Ding Meng could smell and feel the pure white dress, the dizzying fragrance, and even the intense heat on the woman's face. Even though he was very strong, he found it difficult to control himself. "Did you miss me?" the woman said softly. Her gentle voice seemed to be blowing in his ears. It was like the soft words of a spring breeze that made his body go limp. As she said this, she touched Ding Meng's face with both hands. It was as if she was a lover comforting her husband who had not returned home for a long time. Suddenly, she put her palms together and hit Ding Meng's left and right temples with the wind in his ears gesture. Ding Meng's entire body shook violently. This time, the Overlord's mountain-crushing force had displayed a terrifying might that it had never displayed before. Wave-like astral winds spread out in all directions, immediately diluting the goddess' mirror image. The astral winds were also mixed with the mirror images of various blades and swords, causing the entire space to crackle and shake violently. The woman had already floated back. She floated in the air and cast an ice-blue crystal shield. The battle between the two had soared to the edge of the city. The surrounding buildings were lit up by the light of the crystal shield. Ding Meng's mountain-crushing force lasted for a full half a minute before it stopped. The area was already barren, and the streets and buildings were razed to the ground. However, after the smoke dissipated, he still could not move. The heavenly punishment of the calamity water was still binding his limbs. Damn, where did this woman come from? She was a multi-elementalist, and she even had such a secret treasure. However, what shocked Ding Meng the most was the woman's innate charm. The moment she fell into his arms, not only was he distracted, but some parts of his body had also uncontrollably changed in an unsightly manner. If he had not reacted quickly enough, he would have been hit hard by the woman. The boss of the Hidden Front did not make any assumptions. If he had just relaxed with Guan Lin last night, he would not be in this kind of trouble. Once certain desires were released, he would not be in the mood for that kind of thing for a short period of time. Ding Meng was shocked, but the woman was even more shocked. Not only was this young man able to resist her charm, he was also completely fine after being hit by the heavenly punishment of the calamity water. It should be known that under normal circumstances, this secret treasure could easily cut any origin ability user below the war god level into pieces. However, it was ineffective against him. The only explanation was that this kid had strengthened his body to an unimaginable degree. This was a powerful enemy that she had never encountered before. At this moment, the woman's slender hand waved again, and another thin line shot out. This time, the thin line was not the heavenly punishment of the calamity water. It flew into the air and turned into 10 shining silver javelins. Ding Meng knew this martial arts technique. It was the Norse Empire's orbital javelins, an extremely powerful technique. As the name implied, it was like an ion missile on a starship. Once it locked onto you, you would not be able to escape no matter how hard you try to dodge. The conditions to use the orbital javelins were quite harsh. First of all, the javelins were made of platinum blue crystal. Needless to say, it was of high quality. Second, it required the user to have kinetic telekinesis. Third, it required the user to be at least an origin ability user of the ice or lightning element to use it. This was because the goal was not to injure or kill, but to incapacitate the user. However, when it came from the hands of an expert like this woman, it did not matter what the user's goal was. Getting hit by it would basically mean death. The javelins scattered in the air like fairies scattering flowers. Ding Meng had already sensed that the javelins were wrapped in cold and thick ice energy. Inside the javelins, there was a violent and restless electric energy. The javelins were also stained with the strange and ever-changing dark energy of the biochemical element. He even smelled the scent of high-level poison. Suddenly, the 10 javelins turned around and shot toward Ding Meng from 10 different angles in the air. If he was hit, Ding Meng had no doubt that even a divine light martial artist like himself would be seriously injured. Swish! Ding Meng's eyes suddenly exerted force. Dozens of telekinesis strings flew out and formed a high wall force field around him. The force field froze the javelins and fixed them in the air. The woman suddenly opened her mouth wide. Who the hell are you? How do you know so many unique skills? Ding Meng did not have time to pay attention to her. His brain was working quickly. It was useless to increase the origin now. The calamity water was impervious to fire and water. It would be difficult to melt it with the high temperature of the source energy alone. If he continued to fight like this, he would be the one at a disadvantage. The woman obviously thought of this as well. She suddenly waved her hand again. This time, it was not a thin string, but a large number of silver shuttles that flew out from her wide sleeves. Upon closer inspection, there were no less than 10 of them. They looked like shuttles, but were not shuttles. They looked like chains, but were not chains. Each of them was about 5 meters long. They looked straight, but also seemed to be twisted like water snakes. Ding Ming had no time to study what kind of divine weapon this was. He was shocked to find that his telekinesis was ineffective against this thing. The water snakes were in front of him, and the cold light at the tip was aimed at his eyes. Puff! Ding Ming suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a ball of strong light. This was the stored source energy that he had refined many times in the smelting space. He spat it out in the most primitive way. As soon as the strong light came out, it immediately turned into a ball of almost transparent light. The woman was shocked when she saw that the color of the opponent's source energy had turned translucent. She quickly waved her hand and recalled the silver shuttles. She was an expert with foresight. She knew that if she really attacked the opponent, the light would immediately backfire and her secret treasure would become a weapon against her. Ding Ming pinched her chin again and looked at her carefully. The woman glared at him hatefully and hissed, "I know you want to use me. Come at me. I don't care at all. I can do it here." Ding Ming's expression became thoughtful. "It seems that you are an important person in the upper echelons of the empire." Ding Ming's eyes were so deep that you couldn't see through him, but he could see through you. For a woman, this was even more terrifying than stripping her naked. Ding Ming's eyes were so deep that you couldn't see through him, but he could see through you. "Sure enough," Ding Ming said calmly, "you would rather die and be raped than reveal your identity. No, it's not that you don't want to, but you don't dare. Either this group of people from the military has a special identity, or they are part of the Hidden Front. This time, they are up to something big." The woman felt cold all over, but she gritted her teeth and said, "You are a member of the Empire's military. Not only did you not stop those evil forces from outer space, but you also attacked our own people." Ding Ming said, "You are wrong. You and I are not on the same side, and we're not the same kind of trash." The woman seemed to be taking a deep breath, but it was more like she was forcefully swallowing her anger. She was a noble and important person who had been in the limelight for more than 100 years, but someone actually described her as trash. This was a great humiliation. The woman's eyes burned with anger. "If you really want to know who I am, you will regret what you have done today. You will regret what you've done today. You have no idea how much trouble you've caused. I'm someone you'll never be able to associate with or offend." Ding Ming looked at her as if he was looking at a worm. At the same time, he could not be bothered to answer. He slowly got up and walked towards the command center of the space station. The woman was stunned. "You're not going to kill me? You don't have the right to do that." Ding Ming did not even turn his head. This was what the woman had said before, and now it was being returned to her word for word. The woman was furious. She roared, "If you don't kill me, I will make you pay for the humiliation I suffered today 1,000 times over in the future." Ding Ming did not kill her because of his own principles. Brother Liu deserved to die because he arrogantly killed the station commander, but the woman did not do it herself. Although the woman's actions were vicious, Ding Ming suddenly realized something strange about this situation. The military had sent out so many Songqing spaceships, but only one had arrived at the space station. The Hidden Front's boss seemed to have predicted that not many people would come, and that it would be this woman who would come. This woman's strength was indeed at the level of a warlord, but she was good at weapons and treasures, not martial arts. This was especially strange because if the station commander, butler, or instructor were here, they would definitely not be a match for this woman. The heavenly punishment of calamity water could only be neutralized by the divine light energy, and it just so happened that the Hidden Front's boss had left him on the space station. Did the Hidden Front's boss calculate all these details from the beginning? Beside the control panel in the command center, the doctor was nervously staring at the monitor with her hands clenched. When she saw Ding Meng come in, the doctor's hands trembled. "Mr. Ting, are you okay?" Seeing the doctor's innocent expression, Ding Meng's mood improved slightly. "Doctor, can you control the space station to land on Planet 5? The doctor shook her head and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Ting, but the space station is now drifting on a fixed orbit. It's very difficult to change the orbit, and we also need the boss's permission. I don't have that authority." This damned old fox, he really had everything planned out. Ding Meng asked again, "How many flying units are available on the space station now?" The doctor seemed to know what Ding Meng wanted to do, but she revealed a strange expression. It was a look of fear, worry, bewilderment, and panic. Ding Meng frowned and said, "Doctor, what's the matter?" The doctor's whole body seemed to be trembling slightly at this moment. She struggled to speak. "Mr. Ting, let's run away." "Run away?" Ding Meng's frown deepened. Although running away was not something to be proud of, this was not the time to do it. To put it bluntly, he still had not figured out the Hidden Front's overall plan. How could he run away? The key to the land of entropy was something he had to get. Anyone or anything that tried to stop him from getting the key would have to be eliminated. The doctor's face was very pale. She looked down at the table and said timidly, "The bald-headed man who killed Officer 10. I saw him many years ago." "Oh." Ding Meng was a little surprised. "Who is he?" The doctor whispered. "At that time, he was just an ordinary attendant of that lady. I didn't expect that after so many years, he would be a member of the Secret Service." Ding Meng asked, "Is there a reason for this?" The doctor seemed to have made a great decision before she said, "Actually, I know that lady." Ding Meng asked, "Who is she?" The doctor sighed and murmured, "Her name is Zhong Yaoan. She is the daughter of Zhonglin Fei, the CEO of the Apocalypse Group." Ding Meng could not help but understand why this woman was so arrogant and domineering. But on second thought, he asked, "How is the Apocalypse Group related to the military?" The doctor said, "It is widely rumored that the Apocalypse Group is very influential among the senior officials of the Empire. They always sponsor candidates in every election. Now it seems that it is true." Ding Meng could understand this. Once this news was confirmed by Wen Yang, it couldn't be wrong. Chapter 816. Faced with Wen Yang's doubt, how could the Fifth Lord not understand the logic behind it? He chuckled and said, "Don't be nervous. Ever since you took over, have my people done anything harmful to the Empire?" Wen Yang pondered for a moment before replying, "I don't have that." The Fifth Lord said, "Instead, it's my people who have been secretly helping you." Wen Yang said in a deep voice, "Maybe." The Fifth Lord said, "I was the one who asked my daughter to go to Planet 5. Wen Yang was listening. The Fifth Lord said, "My daughter is here to help you." Wen Yang said, "How does she want to help?" The Fifth Lord said, "At least she can guarantee your safety." Everyone looked at each other. Did the Empire's ruler need the Black Handprint spokesperson to guarantee his personal safety? What a joke. Any random person in this place was a top-notch expert who could fight against 10 people at once. Although the Fifth Lord's tone was arrogant, Wen Yang did not show any signs of impatience. He replied politely, "Thank you for your kindness, but I don't think it's necessary. This is my own business and the Empire's frontline business. I'm confident that I can handle it well." The Fifth Lord sighed. "Old friend, you haven't changed much. I haven't changed much either. But this world has changed so much that we can't keep up with the current era. There are many things that we don't fit in with." Wen Yang was silent. He said, "You can do whatever you want. I've never interfered, provided that it doesn't affect the Norse Empire." In other words, if the Black Handprint wanted to do something that endangered the interests of the Empire, then sorry. With the power of the Norse Empire's state apparatus, no matter what the Black Handprint wanted to do, it would be useless. The Fifth Lord's tone changed. Well then, since you don't believe me, I'll give you a ready-made example. This young man in front of you, Ding Meng, just killed your security vice captain on the Hidden Front space station. At the same time, he also severely injured your wife. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. When Yang suddenly looked up, a cold glint in his eyes. The surrounding people also made a commotion. Everyone was facing Ding Meng, ready to take him down at any time. Ross was shocked when he heard this. He only felt that this news made his scalp tingle. Your Excellency, you must be joking, right? The Fifth Lord said, the young lady who received the signal, your brother was also kidnapped by Ding Meng and brought to the space station. Unfortunately, he was used by the Hidden Front to deliver the modified samples of the reconstructed warriors. They are all retired teachers from the Empire's major academies. The young lady he was referring to was naturally Han Yan. Hearing this, Han Yan's body turned cold. The nightmare she was most worried about had become a reality. Han Feng's actions were basically a death sentence for the Han family. You have indeed been here before. When Yang's tone became more certain, Ross couldn't help but say, Sir, Ding Meng is a citizen of the Empire. As an investigator, he has put in a lot of effort into this operation. He was pleading for Ding Meng. When Yang said meaningfully, do you think I'm blaming him? Everyone was stunned. Ross was also stunned. But when Yang calmly interrupted Ross, Yalan needs to change her personality. She's the pride of the heavens, but she doesn't know the hardships of the poor. I've heard a little about Dai Jinsheng. So I don't know when it started, but the Empire actually promoted a major general like Hu Ming. Wouldn't it be better to have a few more rising stars like Chu Shaoqing? He seemed to be sighing, but an old man in black stepped forward and bowed his head. Sir, I'm really sorry. I'm responsible for promoting Major General Hu. It's my fault for not being strict enough and for not using the right people. Please punish me. Ding Meng noticed that the old man wasn't wearing ordinary cloth. It seemed to be some kind of rare metal. Anyway, he had never seen this kind of material before. More importantly, his telekinesis couldn't scan it, so he couldn't estimate the old man's strength. When Yang waved his hand. At this point, there's no point in discussing this. The old man in black didn't dare to say anything else and silently retreated. When Yang looked at Ding Meng again, since you dare to hurt and kill people, you must not only have the ability, but also the courage. I'll give you a small task now. Are you willing to carry it out? Ding Meng knew that he couldn't make any more mistakes at this point. He immediately replied, Please speak. When Yang pointed into the distance. Lead the way. Take us to the island in the middle of the lake. It was actually such a request. Ding Meng immediately realized that the Empire's ruler wasn't a merciful person. So many people had died on the way from the spaceport to the island in the middle of the lake. If it was someone else, the result would probably be the same. It was obvious that Ding Meng had crippled Zhong Yalan. Wen Yang definitely wouldn't let him off easily. However, Ding Meng had no choice now. He turned around and left without saying a word. At this moment, he had to secretly channel his psychokinesis to display his majestic vitality. This time, he didn't show the form of his spell. However, the expressions of the Empire's higher-ups still changed because Ding Meng didn't activate the fossils. Ross heaved a long sigh of relief. He didn't know if he should be grateful for Ding Meng's good luck or Ding Meng's outstanding strength. He was more inclined to the latter because Roger had been pursuing Chu Shaoqing. In fact, he was quite satisfied with Chu Shaoqing. However, after asking around, he found that there was a master secretly helping Chu Shaoqing. This person was none other than the unknown Ding Meng. He soon saw that after this group of people had flown to the island in the middle of the lake, only Wen Yang had entered the sacred lake formation. The rest of the people were standing guard at the edge of the lake. Yang slowly paced around the stone formation, as if he was studying the rune patterns on the ground with his head lowered. A moment later, he stood still, opened his palm, and spat out a formless stream of air toward the ground. At this moment, Dingming immediately sensed that the Chancellor was actually a thermodynamic origin energy user. Judging from the temperature and aura he was emitting, Wen Yang's origin energy index had already broken through 10 billion. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that he had controlled his energy very precisely. In the region of the sacred lake, not a trace of excess energy leaked out. If even a trace of origin energy leaked out, the lake water would immediately evaporate. Dingming also secretly nodded. The head of state's cultivation was at least in the hundreds of years. It was unknown how many resources he had used and how many heavenly treasures he had swallowed. If an ordinary origin ability user were to cultivate to such a level using normal methods, it would be almost impossible. When Yangshao injected energy into the array formation, and all kinds of strange rune patterns were immediately activated, emitting a variety of colors. Before, the array formation looked like a picture scroll, but now this picture was finally alive. It was vivid and lifelike, Dingming took a closer look. The pattern displayed in the array formation seemed to be a peerlessly exquisite crown. Wasn't this the shape of his diamond astral shield? Was this the Mao Xing civilization's divine light technology? The entrance to the holy temple? Or was this the key to entropy? Dingming suddenly realized that his heart was beating faster. He was not excited, but nervous. He felt his right eye twitching violently. He had a strong feeling of unease. After the formation was activated, the entire body of the sacred tree was also activated. Although the magic light pupil also emitted a strong light, the aura of the demons was slowly dimming. At this moment, Wen Yang once again displayed his powerful strength. In the sacred lake, he spread his hands apart and slowly raised them. Two invisible air currents condensed in his palms and did not dissipate. They gathered an extremely powerful source energy. Dingming could not help but sigh. Not only had the Chancellor's original flames been cultivated to the level of being colorless and invisible, but he was also an expert who had integrated heat, rigidity, gravity, the speed of light, mutation, biochemistry, and electromagnetism into one body.